morning. How are you?
Good morning. It was close, but we're glad you're here this morning. Make them. Well, everything's rolling when you're ready.
Okay. Oh, Mike's going to be a minute or so, and then we'll get going. Thank you.
I guess I maybe jumped the gun. I thought he was ready to go.
He had something. There he is.
We haven't been on time for a couple of meetings. Well, back up here in the thin air. Fewer people.
Yes.
Okay.
Just gonna say.
Everybody ready, and we'll have a quick conference.
What is it?
Good morning, everyone. Chair declares Iron County Commission meeting of the 11th day of March 2019. What's the word? Started. Won't come to me.
In session.
In session. Maria, could we ask you to give us to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And Jeannie, would you mind leading us in prayer today? Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gotta hear you.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for the opportunity we have to meet as a commission for Iron County. We ask that, thank you for this, the day, and for the moisture that we have received. We ask that they might continue, that our needs may be met. I ask you to please be at this time with the commissioners, that they will be able to listen and to make decisions that would be reflecting Iron County for the best of our county. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Bo. We are convened. That was the word.
Convened.
Senior moment. Okay, we have the minutes of our last meeting, February 25th, 2019. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the minutes of
February 25th.
February 25th. I don't know why I struggle with the date every time.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the Iron County Commission meeting of February 25th, 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Maria, welcome this morning. We'll have your report first.
Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so as of February 28th, our budget is we have spent 23% of our budget in terms of TRT and 8% of restaurant tax, and that's pretty typical. We spend a lot of money right up in the front of the year because we're purchasing advertising for the busier time. Collections. So we ended only slightly up last year on the TRT collections. And restaurant tax, we ended up with a 9% increase.
As long as it's up, that's good.
Yeah, as long as it's up. TRT revenues did not meet our anticipated budget, so I will need to do a budget adjustment at mid-year. And then occupancies also ended the year down at 6.2% down from the year prior. However, we're starting to see that the occupancies are starting to go up.
So we actually had a very nice January, and December had a little increase, and then January had a 5% increase.
You have it while you're there. Do you have any comments on why it was down 6.2?
I think there's a lot of reasons why. I think, some of it was we've added to the inventory. Not everybody reports to the occupancy report. And then the year prior, we didn't have a lot of snow. And then we had some things going on with the national parks for sure. So I think that's part of it. Excuse me. So I think having more snow is definitely the reason why we're starting to see an uptick. And you can see that report. It's the little print report in there. It's a little graph, and it prints really teeny numbers. So I apologize for that. But that's how they give it to me. The electronic sign is going to be installed at the visitor center at the end of the month, and I will coordinate with Joyce so that she can pick up the old sign and have it moved over to the fairgrounds. So we're excited that could be used in another location. If you remember, we were awarded some grant money from the state of Utah, and with our partners, it totaled about over $400,000 in grant money and other partners being included. So part of that was a winter marketing promotion with Brian Head, and so far we have felt really good about that promotion, and they're reporting 30% ahead of last year in terms of skier days. So snow has a lot to do with it, but also keeping the word out there also helps. So the new website is under contract and being designed right now. We should be unveiling that sometime in April. We're really happy with the company that we've selected. They're 100 years ahead of the company that we had been working with. So, and that will create. They're creating ways for us to, show some return on investment, leading it back to some actual booking engines, so that we can always have that communication that you should book now, and making it easy for people to book rooms while they're looking at our website. The Southern Utah Tourism Summit will be hosted in Cedar City at the end of March. If you'd like to join us, please let me know. I think it's going to be a great conference. It's a conference that will rotate around Southern Utah, so it's our year this year, and then next year it'll go to Kanab. It's the 28th and 29th.
And I'm planning on attending that. Do
you want me to register you?
you just register me?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll forget.
Yeah. You and everyone else. So I've registered a lot of people, so it's not a problem. Yeah, so we would love to have you guys there if you can attend.
I actually have it on my calendar. I just need to register.
Just show up. No problem.
I probably will for at least part of it. I've had numerous emails about it, but I haven't registered yet either. So
okay. Yeah, well, I'll get you registered because we're almost they're almost full. Okay. So because we're at the Hunter Conference Center, there's only so much room. So they're gonna cut it off.
Can you send us the details on that too?
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to register you too as well?
Good.
That would be great. We're glad to have you there. Attached to the report are the recommendations from the tourism board for the 2019 events. We had kind of moved those into January, not knowing what our budget was going to be. We were waiting for that budget to come in. Because we didn't meet the revenue that we had anticipated, we did have to do kind of across the board reduction of 25%. So you'll see that reflected in that list. And they've been notified, so hopefully you won't get any phone calls on that. Let's see. The RFP for the feasibility study regarding meeting venues in Cedar City and Brian Head, that has been put out and it is attached, so you can see what we're looking for. deadline is on March 15th, so this Friday. And then we'll award that in the end of the month. We've already had one company reply who actually is from the state of Utah. So we're excited about that. And we had indication that 2 other companies are going to apply as well. But they're from back east. Any questions about that RFP so far? Good.
So far.
So in terms of personnel, we've hired Kaylee Pickering. She is replacing Lanny Mackert as our communication specialist. And then we just hired Wyatt Eiler, who is now our graphic design and videographer position. And he started last week, but so far both of them they seem to be great. They're just excited and they're out there doing a lot. So we're glad to have them. So, and then that's pretty much all I have on tourism. Do you have any questions for me on that one?
I have a question about your floor before I forget.
Yes.
What's the status, or how are things?
It's done. It's okay.
Did it get redone after the?
Yeah. Paul came over and looked at it.
I met with Peter Woodman, the owner of Shakespeare Flooring, and Lester, and we went over it, and I pointed out everything we wanted to address, and he said he would. So
great.
So it is done. So it is what it is. So.
Done, fixed?
I don't know if it's been fixed yet. We met with him and asked him to do it, and I'm sure he will. So. I think, and he's doing he's doing some additional work for us, Dan. I think you could go ahead and release that check. There's some other work he's got to do, and I trust that he'll take care of us.
Okay. Moving on to outdoor rec.
Thanks.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, so we are at 11% of our budget this year as of February 28th. Issues with our equipment. The only issue we really have right now is that the old truck that we had, which we were keeping for the snow removal, as well as a truck for our seasonal help, it needs a new transfer case, which is about $3,500. The truck is not worth $3,500. It has been beaten to a pulp, and so we have utilized it to its capacity, I believe. But so if there is by chance a truck out there, we'd love to pick it up if anyone's getting rid of anything. Otherwise, I'll just ask for another truck in the next budget year. So I mean, we'll figure it out this year if we have to, but if we can keep our eye out, that would be great.
Does the road department help you as needed?
Yeah, I can't live without the road department. That's all I have to say. I mean, they are amazing. They are so great to work with, and they have helped us so much, so I appreciate them.
We were up at Woods Ranch the other day, and it looked good. There was that much snow, but anyway, the road was plowed up. Boy, there's a lot of snow up there.
There is a lot of snow up there, more than what our little truck can handle. So, so the road department has been very gracious. We actually got stuck. Really, our truck got stuck, and the road department was kind enough to go up there and pull him out and grade it and clear it as much as he could. And then, of course, we've had other storms since then. But
we'll have Dan keep looking for a truck. He's a good auto guy.
Yeah, Dan's
along
the
with
man.
all his other talents.
Dan is the man. So I'm going to be ordering the CXT vault toilet for Woods Ranch in the next couple of days, where we want to get it ordered before the new pricing, which goes into effect April 1, and then we'll have it delivered in June. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with the old building. It may just stay there for a little while. We'll just close it up. But the new restroom will be a nice addition to Woods Ranch. We have secured the high school mountain bike race. It will be the third weekend of September. It'll be 750 riders. They will be out at Three Peaks. We're still working on the Works event that's supposed to be out there. They have not completed their paperwork, and they haven't updated us in the last 3 months. So we're not sure if it's happening or not, but we hope so, because it'll be a good event that would come in August. As far as the year, we completed 2018 with $8,214 in income for reservations, camping, and special event fees. This was a 20% increase over the year prior. To date, we have 23 pavilion reservations on the books. As you had mentioned about the snow up at Woods Ranch, we've had lots of it, and part of a problem that has come about is that it put some pressure on a utility pole, and it basically broke, and so we had to remove it. And we will replace it sometime before we open. It is an expense I didn't budget for, so I'll have to move some things around in order to put that pole back. Everything's good with that cement basin that we poured at Three Peaks. And we passed our quality survey, which is the Department of Environmental Quality does a survey on our water system every 2 years. You have to pass in order for your system to maintain and be open. We passed with no points, which is good. The points are bad. But we do have to replace the valve covers. They have to be replaced with a lockable metal cover. And so we've had to order those, and those will be here in time for us to open in the spring. We will be hiring a seasonal person in May, and we're sharing that person with the weed department. Other than that, things are pretty good at the parks. Any questions?
Not for me, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your good management. Don't see the sheriff yet, so we'll have corrections now. How are you this morning, Joanna?
How are you?
Good. I believe I spoke with the sheriff. He's on his way to the legislature for their law enforcement committee meeting this morning. So.
Oh, he doesn't have a deputy coming, or?
I don't know. Thank you. I kind of talked to him vicariously through the other people I was talking to in the car. So they're all the chiefs and the sheriff are all together from the area headed up. So I'm not sure. Well,
Joanna, you have lots of time, so.
Well, this is going to be pretty quick, I think, but I'll answer whatever questions you need.
Yeah.
If I can.
Actually, got lots of time because it's only 8:20 by that clock.
Oh yeah, I do feel the hour change.
Well,
we only changed that about a month ago from the last one.
Oh really? I'll be right ready for the next year. Right?
I'm the only one that can reach it, so I'll take it on to switch that.
By September at least.
That's your duty. Okay. Let's see, we're at 16% of the budget. We do have, I don't know if we want to, Dan, talk about the medical one at this time, or that was just an unexpected expense. Wait, are we good? Yeah, let's do it. Oh, so when we did the first, like to go back a little bit with the whole RN and the contract, I don't know if you remember all that last year. We had, I recently brought the contract to be for the final approval not too long ago, but it was spoke of on last year as far as hiring a independent contract for our RN, and there was an amount allocated for $35 an hour and up to 6 to 10 hours a week. But when we got our first bill and sent it to Dan, we were a little lost as far as the money, because that wasn't necessarily put in our budget, and so I'm not sure how that will work, or if we have to re-look into that.
The problem was this. So previously we budgeted in salaries and wages, and it was agreed that we're going to contract with.
Dan, could you come speak on the microphone?
Here. We're going to contract with
Michelle Anderson, Cedar Ridge.
Michelle Anderson with Cedar Ridge. So the problem is that won't come out of salaries and wages budget. That'll come out of medical expense. So it was one of those things that we realized after the fact that it wasn't captured in the budget. So we'll just have to do a budget adjustment for that. But we're off and rolling there. It's not critical that we do an immediate budget adjustment because we have a budget in that line item. It's just by the end of the year it'll be over. But so we'll have a budget adjustment coming in May or June or whenever we get to that. But
Okay.
but it's working,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we're getting there. So
Okay, thank you.
I just noted it in this first one and thought we'd address it if need be. So there wasn't a question down the road. As of today, our culinary meal cost is 81 cents. We've got it back down a little bit. That's good. I think at the end of the year it was 94. So it kind of goes up and down depending on where our fruits and vegetables and meats and all that good stuff come from, whether there's any kind of weather going on. I don't know how it works for sure.
That's
but
excellent, though.
the 80, yes, that's really good as far as the amount.
I appreciate the efficiency very much.
Mhm.
I know we're feeding the inmates very well.
Mm-hmm. They do. We have people come back from other counties and they'll say, "Oh, we missed the food. It's awesome." And we've cut back quite a bit, so that's a compliment. It really is, and everything's homemade. And
They call ahead to book.
sometimes if need a
Just kidding.
place to stay and have something to eat. So no, we do get a lot of compliments on our food for that price. That's really amazing. So, and then there's just a breakdown of our bookings that we always put here. As of today, we have 10 state inmates. We have 17 federal. We're not holding any for any other county, and our inmate total is 151. And then we have the transportation split up. We did add on here the video arraignments. I thought that might be something that would be nice to look at. These would be the video court arraignments that we do inside the jail, which actually helps on transportation too. So that's shows you kind of how that's split up. Keeps us busy.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Has the federal numbers remained about level for the last?
We're a little. It just depends. We go up, as high as 25 to 30. There for a little while when the population was quite high. We kind of held off on getting any more because we needed to save room for our local business. But 17's a little on the lower, but it's about average. It just depends on if we just take a group up for, that just was sentenced, and then they'll get us some more throughout the week. It just fluctuates, so this could change throughout the week. So, but we do really good business with them, and there's some good future there. So there's just some work crew hours broke down. We've pulled him in a little bit to help recently, doing a little of both. So we're kind of getting a happy medium there with keeping the work crew going, but keeping some coverage as well. And the staffing, as much as I keep thinking we're going to have this thing perfect, I've come to realize it probably will never happen. I think we're a revolving door. It's where they start and we get people trained up and they're off again. So with that being said, we just lost another one to Washington County. We hired 3, which is good. We have Franklin, Vincent, and Sessions, which is currently at the academy. He moved from our medical department to the line, and he's up there with Dunn. And so they'll be back here not too long away. And then Franklin and Vincent were already post-certified, so those were our first guys that we received that were certified, which was nice to get them in there and not have to wait for them to get back from the academy. We have a couple out still. We have Hanson, who should be returning soon in April from the military, which will be good. That year flew by. And then we also have one out on FMLA. So we've started another hiring process, and so we'll get on to our next roster and go from there.
Is he the only one that's out on military right now?
Hanson, yes. Yeah. Yep. The rest of them, I think, are on the roadside. The jail is pretty much, the remodel for the gym is pretty much completed. We just have a couple tables and stuff we're waiting for. We haven't done anything as far as movement yet. Our numbers dropped down a little bit, which is nice. At least it's a good backup plan for when we need to make that move. So if you want to come out and check that out, Mike, I know you're excited.
How many beds?
What's that?
How many beds are in that remodel?
40 would be the max that we just did to make sure we could, if we got even busier, that we could accommodate that. So instead of doing a real small thing, we went a little bit bigger just to make sure that we had some room till the next future. And then I think the feasibility study is still going on for the new jail. I haven't heard anything back.
I haven't either. Last I heard, they're still working on it. So they haven't emailed with any other questions or called or anything. So in fact, I was going through my emails this morning, and I just made a note to just contact them and just to keep in touch. So
okay, yeah, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help.
Doing that.
SUU.
Oh, that's
the Masters of Public
Oh, yeah.
Administration group. The students are doing it as a project.
Great.
And then in the bottom, that just tells you Dunn and Sessions are both in the academy. Dunn will be back in March. And then we have 2 SUU intern volunteers currently, with more to come in the summer. And we get sometimes, that's where some of our candidates come from. They get in there and kind of see they like that work, which is nice to get that opportunity. And then I just did another print off of the revenue for 2018. We still had a little bit of money coming in, just to kind of break that down so you can see that we do bring a little extra there. So, and I think that's all I have, unless there's something you need from me.
Very good. I have a question here from the audience.
I have a comment.
Or comment? Okay.
Regarding the inmates and the supervisor that have been putting the fence up along 7700 West, they've done a bang-up job. Fantastic.
Oh, good. Good. That's a good comment.
Thank you. Our crew does great work. They're anxious to get out there and do that work.
Oh, for sure. It gives them incentive.
As long as you're feeding them good,
They work hard, protein, yep.
Adrian.
Was it mentioned why we lost that deputy to Washington County?
As far as the reason, I just think there was a potential for a little bit more future as far as what he was looking at.
Wasn't anything specific community?
No, nope. So just something, a step to whatever he was trying to figure out for the future. I guess it would help him. I know that retirement they're working on, hopefully that will be something that helps. I don't know.
Did they move to a corrections position?
Washington, to a bailiff.
Okay.
So. Okay. Anything else? Ed?
Any other
Good to see you.
question?
What's that?
I just say, is there any other questions from here or from the public?
Not for me. Thank you.
Hey,
Good job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, commissioners, do you have any items?
I've got a list.
Okay, great. We got lots of time.
A couple of things. Number one, I had the opportunity to attend the National Association of Counties legislative conference last week in Washington, D.C. That's a conference that's held annually from NACO, who the National Association of Counties were a member of that. I serve on the Justice and Public Safety Steering Committee for that organization, and we had some really beneficial meetings as far as that go. What our responsibility is to look at issues that we can get together as an organization and petition Congress for the furtherment of justice and public safety issues. I co-sponsored a resolution last year which would move the responsibility of taking firefighter protective gear. So it takes the responsibility of the manufacturer who establishes end dates for that equipment. So basically they can say this set of turnouts is only good for a year, and then you have to get rid of them and buy more turnouts from us. I co-sponsored a resolution to try and move that responsibility to an independent laboratory or the CDC, and we were successful in lobbying Congress to do that. So from here on out, the responsibility of determining the life expectancy of personal protective equipment in firefighting is now going to be handled by the CDC, who are going to make those resolutions. To translate that back to Iron County, Cedar City is our fire department, Cedar City, Iron County Fire Department. There is also the Bryan Head Fire Department, the Canaryville Fire Department, the Parowan City Fire Department, and the Paraguna City Fire Department. With the budgets, especially Canaryville and Paraguna, they can't afford to buy brand new protective equipment for their firefighters all the time. And so they do have a memorandum of understanding and worked out with Cedar City Fire Department, who gives them their hand-me-downs. What this will do will actually make the manufacturer responsible for those hand-me-downs and not be able to say, hey, they're out of compliance and they're not good. So this is going to allow bigger agencies like Cedar Fire to, when they get new equipment, to pass their old equipment down, you know, and a lot of it is gently used. Some of it is still in the box. We've had instances of equipment going out of date while it's still in the box and brand new. So that's going to really take a lot of the financial drain off of these really small departments who are going to be able to use this equipment that's passed down. So it's, you know, it really translates back to back to Iron County. That was pretty exciting to get that through. Working on a whole bunch of other things in that committee. The other committee that I serve on, I can't talk this morning. It's called the Placemaking Committee. NACO has a program basically where, in partnership with the Endowment for the Arts, there's grant money available for local communities who are trying to rejuvenate downtown areas, bring a focal point for people to meet and congregate, and this all flows through the economic development side of things. We've had this committee in place locally for about a year now, and have been really actively engaged in that process that makes us eligible for that grant money. We had an opportunity to meet last Sunday back in DC with that group and present our, you know, the things that we have done so far, and that has left us still in the running and still eligible for that funding. It's pretty exciting. I'm the token guy on the committee because it is a NACO committee. They require a commissioner. Everybody else are kind of artist folks, but they're it's funny because they require me to be to these meetings and I'm the least qualified to be there. But I have actually got a little bit more of an artistic eye now after rubbing shoulders with these folks. But the coolest part is that it really puts us, it's a great networking situation to work with other counties with similar goals and to share ideas, but be able to tie in with that National Endowments of the Art grant money when it comes right down to it. So that was a very productive meeting as well. The rest of the conference, there was some great information shared. Commissioner Adams and I had a chance to sit down with Senator Romney last week and tell him what's best for Iron County. Maria, your name came up as we hammered home the national park issues that you asked us to bring back. So it was just it was a very beneficial conference and chance to collaborate with other counties around the country, as well as meet with our national representatives in the legislature and make them understand or remind them of what's important to us here in Iron County. So it's been a busy week. That's what I've got.
Great work. Thank you.
Sure, I'll take a minute. We've really been blessed this year with a lot of water. We're so very grateful for that. I think the other day at Webster Flat we have 209% snowpack, which is just incredible. We're always, the Cedar Basin and Parowan Basin. In the Cedar Basin, we've been working on a groundwater management plan for about maybe 6 years, and we're overdrawing our aquifer by about 7,000 acre feet, and so the state engineers come and we've been working on a plan. We're getting close to wrapping that up. It's been kind of fun because in 2017, as a member of the Cedar City Council, we excuse me, accomplished some great projects. The Western Rock Pit, we installed some pipe and had that infrastructure installed. And so this year, when we had a lot of moisture, we were able to divert that. And I had Elm out the other day, looking at some of these projects. Phil Smith was gracious enough to allow us to use his pit. So every drop of water, so you have the Woodbury split in Cedar City, and 60% of Coal Creek goes north and 40% goes south. And so every drop of water that's going north of that 60%, God, excuse me, I've got your problem, Mike.
it's something's in the air up here.
Parowan air. Huh? So, but every drop of that water going north is being recharged into gravel pits right now, which is really exciting. And of the water going south, 100% of that water, almost 100% of that water is being recharged on the airport borrow pits. So we're doing a great job with recharge. We're trying to get that water that's not being used by agriculture. These farmers don't want it yet because their fields are still wet and they've got plenty of stock water. So we're able to put that in the ground to use at a later date. One thing I've been working on, Cedar City applied with the state engineer for 3,800 acre feet of water that comes out of Quichipaw Creek. And this is going to be a win-win, not only for flood mitigation for these folks that are here from Sunset Canyon, because you guys have had some flooding issues, but Cedar City and Iron County traded some property. And I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that, but Cedar City traded 7.5 acres with Iron County for some property out by the Vandenberg and Bumblebee roads where they converge there, and the county has been able to harvest a lot of gravel and pit run for the construction of the 7700 West and the Vandenberg roads and those things, and it's left a nice big hole in the ground to where we can put water. So I've been working on a stream alteration permit with the Division of Water Rights, and that'll allow us to divert that stream into that gravel pit, and it'll help with flood mitigation issues with Sunset Canyon, as well as we'll receive some great recharge. Right now, it just kind of flows out over the fields and gets eaten up and with phreatophytes and different things. But this will give it an opportunity to percolate right in the ground, and about 3,800 acre feet comes out of that canyon every year, and so that's going to be a great project as well. The other night I had to leave Planning Commission a little bit early, and Parowan Valley is kind of where we were 10 years ago. They're starting to look at, they had the state engineer come in and do an assessment of their groundwater situation, and I've been able to meet with this group of agricultural folks, Alma included, and it's been neat to see the opportunities they have and to be able to just share a little bit with what I've learned over the years on what we've done with recharge in our valley. So it's been exciting. We've got some exciting things going on with water. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate Paul's help with what we're doing in Parowan Valley. We've got the farmers. We've also got the cities and towns involved because they all have wells, and so it's a good thing. We are planning a project on 3rd East here in Parowan to take high water down to our county gravel pit that's quite large at 300 East and 400 North. It's a great pit that will take a lot of water, so that's probably going to take us a year to get that done, but that's going to be a great thing that we can put water, high water, and then not let it go to the Little Salt Lake. The Little Salt Lake's just like Quichipaw. When the water gets there, it's just going to evaporate. It's not going to go down because it's got so much salt and clay. Air, no, this is higher, better air up here. As Commissioner Blake said, I also attended the NACO conference. It was an excellent conference. One of the best presentations I heard was from Brian Steed, who used to be one of our deputy county attorneys and is now actually the head of BLM. And he is just doing some amazing common sense stuff. It's so awesome when common sense takes over. So the wild horse situation, of course, is the biggest challenge that the BLM has, and wild horses are the only species that the BLM has to manage, which is kind of a strange situation, but they do it. And anyway, the wild horse adoptions dropped way off, and the adoptions are really important because if they're going to gather them off the range, which we continue to demand that they do, and get them down to their proper numbers, but they have to have a place to go with them, and they feed a lot of them until they die in feedlots, which is very expensive. They have ranges. Maybe you saw in the paper the other day they were advertising for more places to put these horses, but one of the better ways to move them on is for adoption. And I think in the past it's cost like $100 to adopt a horse. Well, now they're paying $1,000 to anybody who will adopt a horse. And Brian says, well, this seems like extra cost, but it costs $1,200 to feed that horse if they have to keep it in a feedlot. So the very first year they're saving $200, and then from then on, the $1,200 every year for everyone they can adopt. So what a wonderful common sense approach. Also, the Bureau is working with the rest of the Department of Interior trying to reduce the time it takes to process requests and the size of documents, including they've cut the size of their documents, regulatory documents, to an average of 150 pages versus 300, which is an amazing cut. The time it takes to publish documents in the Federal Register has gone down to 39 days versus 4 to 6 months in 2017. So they're making just some great progress. Same for processing drilling permits and leases. During fiscal year 2018, the BLM processed 4,527 permits, an increase of 1,500 from 2016. The backlog has been pared down to 176 days versus 257 days to process these in 2016. So basically they're cutting these in half. The BLM is also working to get authorities to streamline the timber production process, and as we all know, we're producing more timber every year than we harvest. So we have a backlog, a buildup of old growth and overgrown timber, as we saw destroyed here by the Bryan Head fire, which was good and bad because it cleaned out some of that stuff. So anyway, glad to see the regulation going down, the speed of things of approval going up. And also I went to another class, excuse me, and there was another gentleman there whose department deals with permitting for things like dams, infrastructure projects, and they're working really hard to reduce the amount of time that it takes to approve those. And I'll pass that information I have along to all of you in our engineering department. And anyway, it's just they're just doing some good things, and it was a good conference. It was good to meet with Governor Romney, and he says he hopes he gets moved out of the basement soon. He's a fresh, even though he's run for president twice, he's a freshman. So they had his office in the basement. But anyway, they're doing well there, working hard. So anybody else have anything?
I did want to echo, we've over the last few weeks we've received now 3 letters regarding the Upper Basin Road, just individuals who have for many generations used that road and are contesting and protesting the locks that have been placed on it. So
okay. Thank you.
We are keeping those. I just wanted to bring it out in the public meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, a company has locked their gate on the Upper Basin Road, both of them from the Iron County side and the Washington County side, and we're not going to allow that. We've already taken the locks once, and then we found out that after the snow fell that they'd put it back on. So as soon as we can get up there, we'll take it off again. We hope we don't get into court, but if we do, we've got good letters from our citizens stating how long the road's been there, how long it's been maintained by county crews, and how long they've been using it. So I think we'll have an airtight case, but we may have a fight. So anyway, thank you for bringing that up, John. Anything else? If not, we'll take a recess, and we'll start our public appointments at 10 a.m. So sorry for that 15-minute wait, but where we have it posted for 10 o'clock, we have to start it at 10 o'clock with those. So we'll be back before Welcome, everyone. We are reconvened as an Iron County Commission. Our first item is public hearing to receive public comment and discuss project details regarding the proposed assessment area in the Sunset subdivision. We'll also explain the process for creating the assessment area, hear objections or questions, establish protest schedule, and set date to consider. Reed Erickson, our county planner, will do the explanation. And the chair does declare the public hearing open, and Reed Erickson, our county planner, will explain the process for creating this assessment area.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. Thanks, Reed.
Appreciate the opportunity to just explain a little bit about what has brought us to this point. The owners of property, I won't say all of them, but a number of them have approached the county with an application to consider an assessment area to improve the roads to a chip seal standard. They're in the subdivision. I have a map up here showing all of the roads that are included in the Sunset subdivision for consideration. There are 58 lots. This subdivision was created in 1981. There are 7 to 10 acre lots in most of that subdivision, and so they're large lots. And at the time the subdivision was built, it was just built with a gravel road, and it wasn't built to county standards. Since that time, the people out there have had responsibility to maintain that road and have done different things over the years. Developer a number of years ago brought in some, I don't know what you'd call it. It was not a chip seal, but an attempt to chip seal the road, but it wasn't to a county standard. There have been some improvements in that subdivision over time. They've put a water system in, and they've done some things to make it nicer out there. And so in their attempt to continue to do that, they're desirous of evaluating a road assessment, which means that the county, if the roads are brought up to county standard, because of the level of development out there, which is by far the majority of the lots have been built on, they would like to have that road brought up to county standards, which they are proposing to pay for, and that's the process of this assessment area, after which the county would then accept those roads to become county roads and maintain those from that point on. The proposal is to chip seal the roads. There's about 5.2 miles out there to be done in this subdivision, as the roads are indicated there, over a 20-year period. But it's a 20-year assessment. There's a process, and John slipped out. We put up the next slide.
He's hunting more chairs.
Somebody else for chairs. Sorry.
There's a process that he can put up that shows a diagram that I think you were given in your packet that talks about this being the first step that the county really does. After the county engineers prepared an assessment of the property, the county then considers the application. The homeowners association is who we have been corresponding with and have been working with. The elected officials of the homeowners association, and I'm sure they can discuss that with you in their process. Once they, in 2009, the county accepted a resolution, or passed a resolution on how these districts or assessment areas are to be created. They've kind of replaced what we have all known for many years as being special improvement districts. And we did a number of roads throughout the county with these special improvement districts over the years, which essentially is the same as what we're now calling an assessment area. The assessment area simply is the statutory language that they created prior to 2009, and in 2009 they established this process right here, and the state statute references are in each of these steps. So they've completed step one, which is the application process. We have entered into the second step, which is the notice period. We have noticed this application in the paper on February 10th, 17th, 24th, and March 3rd, as well as letters being sent to each of the property owners of the 58 properties that were created in the district, or in the subdivision. They actually submitted the application last fall in September. And then as we evaluated that application, determined that the county the rights of way still belonged to someone else. They didn't belong to the homeowners association, and they didn't belong to the county. They belonged to the original developer who still owned those. And so they engaged a process that took several months to actually acquire the right of those rights of way, so that they had ownership of those, and so that those then could be conveyed to the county through this process, and the county then could have legal rights of way for that subdivision. Because at the time the subdivision was created, the ownership was retained by the owners of the subdivision, and they didn't convey that either to the homeowners association or the county at that time. So that's what's taken us the point to get to the delay that from when they submitted last fall until we were ready to start advertising. And that's when we started advertising, is once they acquired right of way. So on this second period, it talks about that 4 consecutive publications in the paper, letters going out to surrounding property owners. And then the middle tab there is the public hearing, which is what we're conducting now, which is between 5 and 20 days after the 4th publication, which the last publication was on March 3rd. And so we're now at that point where we, explain the process and make sure everyone understands what's occurred. The next step then would be the protest period. So there's a 60-day protest period after beginning today for the next 60 days. And that's why on the public meeting schedule, within 15 days of the end of the protest period, which would be May 10th, is the end of the 60 days. And so on May 13th, we've scheduled another meeting with the commission to consider the application of whether to create the assessment area or not. If during this protest period, and it says there on the last bullet that within 5 days of before the public meeting, we have to post on the county website a tabulation of all the protests. If there are 40% of the properties that protest the creation of the district, then the commission doesn't have any option but to decline the district and not create. Okay, 24 properties is 40% of the 58. So if during this next 60 days, 24 of the property owners protest in writing to the county clerk, and that information was provided on the letter, and we can make that available, but just if they submit in writing protest to the creation of this new assessment area, then the commission cannot create the new assessment area. If after that protest period and during that meeting of the last meeting that's now scheduled for May 13th, the commission, if they don't receive 40% protests, aren't obligated to create the district, but they can then go forward and create the district if it's the determination that that's in the best interest of the county and the best interest of those property owners applying for that assessment area. So that's the process. The county engineer prepared an estimate as they approached the county and asked for this consideration, and so that the figures that are given out in the publication of $1,154,255, which is the engineer's estimate to create the improvement, was based off of that engineer's estimate, and so that figure divided by 58 is $19,995, $900.95. And so that's the figure that we're using in the advertising that we sent out to the property owners, and that's where we're at in the process. I don't think there's any more that I need to add. Steve might want to explain a little bit on the estimate and where they're at with that and where that came from, and then we're ready. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
So just a question. So it looks like it's going to would be about $20,000 per lot.
Yeah.
And that's amortized over 20 years
20
with
years.
interest.
Uh-huh.
So what would that, just over $1,000?
The interest rate that we put in the advertisement was 5 to 6%. The bond counsel that we've talked with, our financial advisor, suggested that with that value and the market is, that would be on the high end, would be able to come in under that, but we wanted to make sure there was enough in there to cover that estimate.
Thank you, Reed. Steve?
Thank you, Commissioner. It's an
He
opportunity.
was our county engineer, by the way, if anybody didn't catch that.
I'm sorry. I should have said that. I appreciate the opportunity to address you and all of you folks. George Mason started with us about 3 years ago. He was president then of the Homeowners Association. He felt like most of you wanted to improve your roads, so we started talking. Reed has explained about an SID, a Special Improvement District. That's all I've ever been involved with in all my experience with the county. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, the legislature handed us this assessment area, which we're plowing new ground here. This is the first time we've been through in an assessment area. One of the things we learned is after I made an estimate of what the roads would cost, bringing to our standard. The law said the county had to add 15% to that for overhead. And so you folks have seen 15% added to the engineer's estimate, which we have just learned through this process is something required by law, and that's how Reed got to the figure that he presented today. How did I get to my figures? You may have noticed at the mouth of Quichpaw Canyon, there's a huge pile of gravel. My thought was, if we could find a material source that was close, eliminating a long haul distance, your project would cost much less. We did find that material source. We were successful in getting 7.5 acres from Cedar City. We've mined that with a pit run to put on our Quichpaw Road and our Bumblebee Road, and we've crushed enough gravel there for their project. Now that's county gravel, but Preston has said that they could use this, they can buy it from us at what we paid for it, and then when we need more gravel, he'll have money to crush the additional that he needs. But right now, about half of it would be available for this assessment area, Sunset subdivision. Half of it is what Preston's going to need in the next year or two. I think it's needs to mention, Reed alluded to when your subdivision was first made, they were private roads by the decision of the developer. And it's taken some time, as Dan well knows. Dan, where are you? To get from these private roads to now the HOA has ownership of these roads. And as Reed explained, part of the process, those roads will come to the county if we go through the project. And I'm available for questions if you folks have any from me.
My name is Gary Maloney.
Hi, Gary.
My understanding is when you first started talking with George 3 years ago, it's about time we moved in and built our home there. It was just kind of throwing some numbers across, and we were talking about well less than $500,000 to improve roads, and we talked about that. I talked about it with George, and the numbers were nothing solid. Obviously, we didn't know what shape the roads were in. We didn't realize that they weren't really chip sealed. They weren't done up to standard and all that sort of thing. So there was a lot of progression over this last 3 years about the conditions the roads are in and the increase in cost, which has gone up every time we've talked about it to the existing amount, which is a fair amount of money for individual 58 people to take. 58 people includes, if that map was back up there,
Can you put that back up, Reed?
On Bumblebee and Vandenberg and and 3800, I believe, is the name of the other road that comes off Vandenberg.
There's another street down here. It's part of your subdivision. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
okay.
will be included.
That would be included. But the ones
Absolutely.
that
That's
the other,
part
the other-
of Sunset subdivision.
Okay. But the HOA really has nothing to do with this process. Am I correct in that? Yeah, as an HOA, as an entity, that has nothing to do with this process.
Only that they have been the one that's taken the initiative to get the roads from private individuals who was very difficult to find after this many years.
I realize
They
that.
now
That's just
have
in the last
title
few
to the
months.
roads, yes, so they can give the roads to the county, and we won't go through this unless we own the roads.
Exactly. But that's the HOA, and as a part of our CC&Rs in the HOA that are there to protect the subdivision, in order for us to borrow money or enter into an assessment as an HOA, we have to have a 75% approval. My understanding from what I was told by the board was that the county, once we didn't reach anywhere near that the county came back with with their process for what they do in a regular neighborhood. They would do it anywhere without an HOA being involved at all. They would go in and they only required what they started out with as a simple majority, but as we've gone into it a little bit further, we've discovered that it's a actual 60% approval. So that's what makes me assume that the HOA as an entity has to have nothing to do with this, correct? Because it's against our CC&Rs for them to go into debt. So once that happened, as far as I'm concerned, as an entity, they had to pretty much step back ethically and no longer approach it as an HOA. They have to approach it as a neighborhood. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
That's a legal question, and I'm going to yield to our counsel for that. But let me say a couple of things first, may I? George and I did early on talk about some numbers, and we didn't know then as if you wanted to build the roads to a gravel standard or a chip seal standard. That's part of the reason for the lower cost. We were talking gravel. The other part of the reason, which we've discovered as we've been in this process now for the last 2 years, I had a geotechnical evaluation made of your roads. We went out there and we cored it. We drilled about 20 holes to see what was underneath the chip seal that Bryce Rowley put there. He chip sealed on dirt, much to my dismay. That's what we discovered. There's no gravel underneath our chip seal. So we're going to pulverize the existing chip seal. We're going to put pit run and crushed gravel under it before we chip seal it, so it'll have a pavement structure that can carry the weight for the county to maintain the road thereafter. One thing that hasn't been said here, you guys will bring it to our standard with 2 courses of chip seal on top of the gravel we're going to put there, and we'll put new culverts. The county the following year, after we chip seal 2 courses on a gravel road, normally comes back and chip seals 1 more layer the second year. You folks will be getting that at no expense to you. That's just something we do on our roads. So that will bring it to our standard. Do you have other questions about the costs?
I do. So it's $19,900 plus 15%.
No. The number you've received today, approximately $20,000, I hope is the max. I hope we will get a bid that's less than what my estimate is. You'll receive all the benefit of that, and it'll cost you less. But thank you. That brings me one more point. When we came back to you initially, we were talking, as we normally do, 10 years to finance it. You have basically 8-acre lots. That's a lot of frontage. That's an expensive piece of road. They asked the commission if they would go for 20 years. The commissioners said yes. So we're financing this over 20 years, which makes your annual payment much less than if it was only 10 years. You have the option to pay it off within 2 weeks after we're finished, we'll tell you what your share is. Once we get the final cost from all the construction, you can pay it off and never hear from us again. But you can also finance it over 20 years.
Okay. May I respond?
Yes.
The roads are horrendous out there now. They have just fallen apart in the last few years. You can hardly drive on them. Gravel, the zoning changed out there at the same time that we started talking about this, or just about the time I built my home. It changed the zoning out there. And it's my understanding that the county, because of the zoning, won't put in gravel roads there. Gravel roads make more sense to me in that area for what that area is. Good, well-maintained gravel roads make a lot more sense for a lot less money. And it's still a lot of money for 58, you know, I mean, if you had a 300 home neighborhood that you were talking about, it takes it down pretty good. But you're gonna damn near double pardon my French, you're gonna double my taxes by putting that assessment on me if I can't write you a check for $20,000. So for 20 years, I'm gonna have a pretty hefty bill at the end of the year, every year, compared to what I have now. It's a country setting, there are large lots, animals. There's no throughway, so there's only one entrance into that subdivision. So to have big, wide, chip-sealed roads is nice in the subdivision, but in a country setting like that, it just doesn't seem to be necessary to me to spend that kind of money. It's my feel. It's simply my opinion. Everybody's entitled to their own, and obviously we'll get to that percentage eventually. But the road, initially I was talking about the lots there that aren't affected by this whatsoever. We're going by 58 lots, but some of them will gain no benefit from this whatsoever.
But we've bought into the HOA, Gary. I mean, we're just as much a part of this as you are, even though we live out there on the road. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, I really do. But if you take us out of it, everybody else's price goes up exponentially.
Exactly.
So
unless the county's picking up their share, and even if they are, they're counting their votes towards the required votes to cancel or to reject. Or, you know, it seems like there's at least 4 lots that have no benefit from this project whatsoever. So if it's not an HOA thing, if it's a neighborhood thing, then there's not 58 lots involved that benefit from this. So I'm just raising the questions because personally I feel that for me personally I'd rather have less money, gravel roads, and well-maintained gravel roads out there. But I don't know if I'm correct with assuming that the zoning bans the county from allowing that or not. That was my impression. That's what I was told.
And I'm going to have to yield to Reed on the zoning. I didn't know it was changed. Is that?
I didn't either.
It changed
in R5
years
since
ago.
the subdivision was created, as far as I know, where they wouldn't have been able to create 5 to 7 acre or 7 acre lots if it was 820. So I'm assuming it's been R5 for a long time.
3 years. It's just changed 3 years ago.
I don't think the zoning was changed.
It was changed I had to sign papers in the midst of my escrow because they changed the zoning out there. I'm sure.
We owned that property for 5 years. And about 2 years into owning the property, we're still located in the Midwest. We didn't build until 3 years ago. And about 2 years after we owned the property, Iron County did send us a letter informing us that the zoning was changed. So I had the letter.
Well, let's set the zoning issue over here for just a minute. I wanted to ask, we have sent certified letters, 58 of them, to your neighborhood. Are there any people, and some of them have been returned. Obviously there's some vacant lots, but is there anybody here today that didn't receive a letter? Larry, if you'll see me after, I'll get you a letter. Okay. Anyone else? So that letter has told you what Reed has tried to explain. I've tried to help you understand the estimate. We can go to the standard you want to go to. And we're back to the attorney.
And I apologize. I didn't catch all of your question. What was your question?
So, Gary, if you could come and speak into the microphone.
My initial question was that there are lots involved on Vandenberg that will gain no benefit from this whatsoever. And the HOA as an entity, because of its requirement in its CC&Rs to have a 75% approval rate in order to go into debt, you know, obviously the HOA isn't borrowing the money, so that was their get around to going to the county standards. But if that's the case, then the HOA's out of the equation. And that means that you guys should be addressing the neighborhood and the houses that are actually benefiting by this improvement, not 58 homes, 54 homes, maybe, depending on how everybody's
Are those four in
so
the
that's-
HOA? Are those four that you mentioned, are they in part of the HOA then?
They're part of the HOA, but they do not have any frontage on any of those roads.
Okay.
Steve, if you could speak in the microphone.
Sir, I think you're referring to these 4 lots.
Yes.
This one actually, excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this one does have frontage. It's receiving a benefit. This one is only receiving a little bit of benefit. I grant you that.
Their driveway doesn't go out there.
This is our Vandenberg Road.
Right.
Coming together with all of this is the county's chip sealing, bringing to a chip seal standard the Vandenberg Road from George Vandenberg's house, where the chip seal presently ends, all the way up to 7700 Lake Road this year. The following, and you've noticed we've been building the subgrade around here.
Absolutely.
The following year, a chip sealed surface will come around and past this entrance up to approximately here. So you're receiving.
They're receiving benefits from the county.
I want to know.
The county is doing that you'll benefit from.
Absolutely.
The way we take an SID, the way we've always done it, is we've included every lot in the subdivision based on the assumption that all the lot owners use the road the same amount. Now, we could do this by frontage, and those numbers would be different for every one of you. But we've left them all the same, including these, assuming all the lot owners receive the same benefit.
Okay, well, if you continue that road on up, there are several other homes up there on Vandenberg and Bumblebee that are.
No.
Oh, absolutely. There are 20-acre lots.
There are no homes there.
There's no homes up here.
Yes, there is.
No, there
Until
aren't.
you get way up there. They're not adjacent to the road.
When I'm driving down Bumblebee to get to 5800 on my right side of the road, there's nobody owns that property? That's county?
It's BLM.
That's all BLM on both sides of the road?
Some of it.
Oh, all of it.
We'd have to get specific, but some of
Okay,
it is BLM.
okay. Well, all I'm saying is these lots here are gaining the same, they're gonna gain the benefit whether this goes through or not. And obviously, like I said, the roads need improved. I think they need to be improved to a less expensive than a full wide county chip seal road. I believe that in the area, because of the way it is, if you've ever been out there, it's a rural area. It's nice gravel roads would be adequate, as long as they're well maintained and taken care of, in my opinion.
And that's a decision that this group will make.
Exactly. I'm just saying that we're including people in this group that aren't going to benefit by this decision. They're going to benefit regardless.
So where is your lot? Could you show me where
Exactly,
your
and
lot
I'm speaking for myself if you don't mind.
is? Could you show me where your lot is?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I think we've discussed the questions for Steve. If there's any specific to the engineering, we'll take those and then we'll go into the regular. Ma'am.
Please come forward, ma'am.
Yeah, please come forward. State your name. And please limit it to 3 minutes or less.
It won't take that long.
Okay.
My name is Nancy Brandt, and if this goes through, the value of the property would increase, which means on top of our regular taxes that we pay right now, plus the special assessment, there would be additional tax because of the value. Can anyone tell us approximately what percentage that would be?
Our county
Because
assessor
clearly
is here.
that would happen, correct?
Pardon?
The value of our property would increase. Clearly that would happen. And
Our county assessor, Cindy Bullock, is here. Cindy, can you answer that, please?
I don't know, because it would depend on what those lots sell for. We don't set the value, we react to that. So if all of a sudden lots start selling at 20% higher, then the value would go up 20% and taxes would go up significantly, or would
Can you give us an example of another subdivision? Dan quoted one. Dan quoted one in his email to us. What percentage their property taxes went up?
I don't know off the top of my head, and I was not privy to that email, so I don't even know what area.
Can you give us an example of another subdivision that's done this? What percentage their taxes went up?
I don't know.
But you agree they would definitely go up?
If the value of the lot started selling, if all of you that own lots started selling them and saying, I now have to recoup that, and instead of selling at what they were, they sold it higher, then yes, we would react to that, and the taxes would go up that same percent.
And that has occurred.
I mean, it occurs all the time, and whenever values go up, we have to react.
You just answered my question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the regular, we've asked questions now of Steve concerning the engineering's estimate. Now, at this point, the regular public hearing regarding this issue is open, and you're welcome to come forward. Please, when you come forward, state your name, and let's limit it to 3 minutes per person. If somebody else has made your point, you're still welcome to come up, but try to make it a little short, take a little less time. So just come forward, sir.
Hello, my name's Conrad Stadig. I only have a question, and that is, we've talked about chip seal, and Gary's brought up the prospect of gravel. Would the county do a gravel road that, like he described, or does it have to be chip seal? That's
the county will accept a gravel road. We will not put in the gravel road for a private subdivision, but we will accept a gravel standard, Iron County gravel standard road, yes, if that's what the consensus is.
And then the county would take the road over?
We would.
And then they would maintain it after that?
On a gravel surface, if half the lots have a home on them, then we take it over at that point. And we're probably already there. Mm-hmm. And we would, once we take it over, yes, we continue maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
On. You bet, thank you. Okay, other comments? Okay, I guess we took care of most of the comments with the questions for you, Steve. One more time, are there any other public comment regarding this? Please come forward, sir.
Yeah, it's Robert Herber. What happens to the people who can't afford this huge influx, as we talked about the taxes and assessment fees and all that other stuff?
They're by law and by this assessment area law, if they're 60%, they can be forced to go. And the final decision, as I understand, is with the county commission, but they can be forced to go with this.
Okay.
So, anybody have any other to add to that answer?
I had an engineering professor that used to make a complicated issue very simple. Maybe this will help you. If you have a $20,000 assessment over 20 years, in rough numbers, without interest, it's $1,000 a year. That's about $3 a day is what we're talking about.
Okay, other comments, public hearing?
I'd like to speak for just a moment on that issue. Without interest, you're right, it's about $83 a month. With interest, it goes up to $137 a month. At 6% interest, it's $147 a month. So it's a significant, the interest is a significant amount of money. It's not an added few bucks on top of that. So if we're talking about an interest-only bond, I would love that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Chair declares the public hearing closed, and we will continue the process as Reed Erickson explained. Thank you very much for your attendance here. Okay, at this time we have a regular public comment period, 3-minute limit per speaker for any. This is public comment on anything regarding the county. You're welcome to come forward for that at this point. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to item number 2, presentation to introduce Voices of Iron County Education, a political action committee, and to share their concerns and goals, requested by Cheryl Stratton. Cheryl, you're welcome to come forward. Thank you for being here, folks. We appreciate your interest.
Hang on to that. Okay, it'll sit there if they want it. I thought Bill Presgrove had a comment. So just ask for 20 minutes. Sweating?
I hope it's wise. I know that.
Easier for the county to maintain.
Yeah.
You don't have to grade those every. When I was giving my home.
3 or 4 times a year or more. Yeah. So, yeah. So.
Not going to encourage him.
It's still morning.
Yeah, yeah.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
My name's Cheryl Stratton. This is
Will you scoot the microphone over?
I'm
so
sorry.
we can hear you. And
can you hear me now?
The YouTube public can also hear you.
This is Andrea Nelson, and we have Tony Sarah. And we are members of Voice. We formed a political PAC here to address a very important issue to us, and we feel to the entire county. After I'm done speaking, I've got a couple other speakers that would like to present part of our plan and our agenda as PAC. So I'll start with mine first.
Okay.
Absolute power corrupts.
Cheryl, hold tight one sec.
I'm
Let's
sorry.
wait till he closes those doors so we can hear you.
Better set those guys up to have a meeting after their meeting.
That's a little better, isn't it?
There's always the meeting after the meeting. That's where the stuff really happens. So anyway, okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Sadly, this is the state of affairs at the Iron County School District and Board. Transparency, integrity, and ethics have vanished along with accountability. The cost to change a school name is expensive. Our research shows an average cost of this type of change will be around $662,000. Answering an inquiry concerning funding, Superintendent Delaney replied by email before the vote. This was dated on February the 2nd of this year. Considerations regarding the cost has already been central to the board's consideration. The cost will be covered in such a way that the work of the district will continue without interruption. We ask, how long has this been in discussion and been taking place, and how do you implement without interrupting the district? This has interrupted the district as of right now. Funding increases must be requested in writing by the superintendent to the board, published and made public. This is out of the ICSD handbook. The school board lost a $92 million bond election this past November, which is pretty strong signal that the ISCD and presently constituted has lost trust of the community in its fiduciary responsibilities. We demand that not one red cent be spent on this debacle until a full accounting is given to the taxpayers. We deserve to know from what educational endeavors these funds are being diverted, apparently over several years. We require a full independent audit of all school district finances going back 6 years. This is our right as citizens to ask, and is our right as citizens to receive. That's the opinion of Voices of Iron County Education. I've got papers. I should have given these to you before I began with our research as to the cost to replace a high school symbol. And that's it. Next, I'd like to have Andrew speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time today. None of us ever thought none of us want to be here. This is not something we wanted to spend our time doing or dealing with. And the issue, in addition to the name change, is the way it was constructed, manipulated, maneuvered. So I'll start by quoting from a letter to the editor. Surely you hate being stabbed in the back. The ICSD portrayed a community with their 3-2 vote to remove Redmond from the logo of Cedar High School. Founded in the 1940s, CHS honored Native Americans in the area with the name Redmond to build unity. There were many tribes here, Paiutes, Utes, Hopi, Navajo, as well as ancient ones, Fremont and Anasazi. So it was a nod to respect all of those ancient cultures that have been here and traveled here for centuries. Now that unity has been eradicated under the guise of political correctness, deceit, and anonymity, leaving destruction and disunity. So a few of the many egregious acts perpetuated secretly by certain powerful district personnel include that this was a top-down edict, unquestioned by the board president. No lawsuits or police reports of bullying have been filed warranting discussion. No petition was filed by an entity for change. There was no threat of a lawsuit. So even if it was a preemptory kind of action, it didn't need to be because, and if that's the case, why was it done in such a secret manner? So at the Iron County School Board meeting, the resolution read by one of the members said that was the only time any resolution was brought before the board was when the board read one after they voted. And they said they wanted to end this by the end of 2018, 2019. But already there have been movements to destroy and take down the symbols because it's confusing to the kids, where their own resolution states they weren't going to do it till the end of the year. This is, in talking with some attorneys, the word malfeasance came up. So I looked up what malfeasance is. Intentionally doing something either legally or morally wrong, which no one had the right to do. It involves dishonesty, illegality, or knowingly exceeding authority for improper reasons. Other words, misbehavior, misdeed, misgovernment, mismanagement, overstepping, wrongful action, and wrongful conduct. All of these, which we think has happened in the Irons County School Board over the last little while. We want to say that we do thank Dale Brinkerhoff and Marianne Kemp, the members of the school board who voted to keep the Redmond name. They had done their research, and they had asked questions, and they had attended seminars, including one given by the Native American Guardians Association. We appreciate their willingness to look into everything. As I received emails from these individuals and talked to them, they found out that they didn't even know how the committee was organized or that there was a binder, which I will now go on to. The only academic evidence cited as a reason for change was shown to be false by the Native American Guardians Association. When I first heard about this, like around the first part of the school year, I thought, somebody said, well, they're forming a committee. And I thought, great, let's have this discussion. Our problem is this discussion was never allowed to happen. Let's talk about this. Let's get volunteers from the community to research it. The Redmen name is unique. There are only 27 Redmen names as mascots or logos in the United States, and we're the only ones west of the Mississippi. It's a unique name for a unique school. Let's talk to those other schools. Let's talk to other schools that have Native American symbols, those who have changed, those who haven't changed, the cost, what it did to the community. Let's do some real research. But that was not the case. The committee was selected. The operative word is select. It was selected by members, certain powerful people in the school district, to reflect what they already had put on the agenda, what was already their agenda. We know for a fact that I have checked these out, that the Redmen logo was removed from CHS stationery at the beginning of the school year, that coaches were told not to use the Redmen logo. Because it would be too expensive when it was no longer the school mascot. That happened before anything got out to the community. In fact, not until the end of November was the community even aware of it publicly when they when they said they would have public forums. I went to all three of those forums. Both my husband and I went to all three of those forums. In the first forum, a Native American councilwoman stated that they agreed with the board's decision to change the the name of Cedar High School. There were members of the board there and there were members of the school district there, and not one of them corrected that statement by saying only discussing. They allowed that to go on. So many people left that first forum realizing that this was an insult to their intelligence. The decision had been made, and this forum was really a charade. My husband asked the superintendent after one of the forums directly, "It sounds like this decision has been made." And she said, "Oh no, it has not been made." Well, she's the one. It had already been made for several years, at least at the beginning of the year when they have removed Redmen logo already. The other thing that was very disconcerting was that on January 25th, the AP Wire picked up a statement from Stephen Allen. It was aired on KSL TV. And it says, and he said that school board officials say they will take their time with considering removing the Redmen mascot. Stephen Allen says the board will not take an immediate vote on the issue surrounding the mascot at Cedar High School. That was on January 25th. On February 5th, they took the vote. That is not a long time. That's not taking their time. The superintendent was dishonest to my husband and I and those who were standing around. I hate being lied to by a public official, and certainly to the world, to the AP Newswire, this has not been an honest statement by the school board president. The committee was, as I stated, was selected for input. In fact, the school president's wife was on the committee. Although not technically illegal, it certainly is improper and unethical. The Sunshine Law, thanks to one of our citizens, forced the last committee meeting to be open because they were supposed to be open meetings and they were held in secret. That lacks ethics, it lacks integrity, and it's dishonest. And we appreciate that she did the work to get that last meeting open. The committee was, as I studied this more, we found out that the committee was not a fact-finding committee. It was a rigged committee. We know 2 members of our community who were on the committee that left because they saying that it was rigged. The committee was given this binder. This binder is 99% propaganda of why a name should be changed like this. The first article in the binder is from the American Psychological Association that stated in 2005 that these kinds of nicknames were improper. In 2013, this study was totally debunked. It was not a proper study, not correct sampling, and not large enough to make that kind of decision. Also in this binder that was given to the committee, which included students, was a whole section on lesson plans of how to teach kids not to use these kinds of things. The lesson plans were all one-sided and very biased, with questions like this: Why is an attractive depiction just as offensive as an ugly caricature? Not that if it was offensive, why was it just as offensive? Those are loaded questions to our high school students. And actually, these lesson plans start at grade 1. The next section, the largest section of this binder, was provided by the Center for American Progress. A few clicks on the internet and you find out the Center for American Progress is the most extreme leftist organization in Washington, D.C., founded by John Podesta. And we could spend a whole day on John Podesta, but we won't. But it just shows that it was totally biased and no other opinions were given except for the letters that they received from the community, which by what we have discovered is by and large the community wanted to retain the name. In this binder, which nobody brought out, apparently, was an interview to a Saginaw Chippewa Public Relations Director, Frank Loiter, who says that Native American mascots are great if they are used appropriately. And Cedar High School has always done that and worked hard to do that. He also says that he doesn't believe that a menacing-looking mascot on a backboard of a basketball hoop is going to marginalize Native American children. That happened long before, with their problems started in 300 years ago. So he's fine to use those kind of mascots. This group also invited the Native American Guardians Association, which is a national organization that's trying to educate the people about Native American mascots, and that the best approach is to educate, not eradicate. When you eradicate, you marginalize and remain and force into more invisibility the Native American population in the United States. We really appreciate them, and we really appreciate their letter that was published after the vote, where they said that as seen elsewhere, NAGA anticipates that the once native-centric city will be thrown into division and turmoil. It happens every time a community long-standing identity is removed against its will. I guess that's about all I have to say with the notes I have. We have a couple of other members of Voice who have some other things that covered in this. But again, in addition to the name, which debate was never allowed to happen? We are very upset with the lack of transparency, the lack of integrity, the lack of ethical behavior, and the lack of accountability to the citizens. The day of the vote, we had done an online petition. It received 5,400 votes to retain the name, 90% of them from Iron County. We presented that to the board. That 54 those 54 names represent triple the amount that 2 of the school board members got votes to even become part of the school board. It's very significant what they've done to this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. A couple of things that I'm going to go over.
Could you tell us your name?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. My name is Tony Cosilia. I'm the president of Voice, which is Voices of Iron County Education. A couple of things that I'm going to go through have kind of been said in a way, but I'm just going to go through my list, so bear with me. I'm here to represent our organization in regard to the Redmond name. Although we came together on this issue of the changing of the name, between our own research and things brought to our attention, our concern has grown for a general dealing of the board. About a month ago, I personally asked the school board to pause on the name issue, take time to consider the ramifications, and listen to the community. Instead, we feel that they are pushing forward as quickly as possible to make the decision harder to change. We believe that there are multiple problems with the way that the school district has presented and gone forward with the name change. We think their decision should represent the community majority. And if they believe the decision follows the values of the community, then there is no rush. If this is what the community and the student body want, shown by a vote or other measures, then we as the Voice will support that change and help with the smooth transition of this process. If however it does not represent the community, what the community wants, and we feel that in this case it does not, then we believe that there are no actions that they are not acting in the best interest of the constitutes and need to change the course to represent the people they are supported to speaking for. Following are some of the concerns that we have about the name change and the course of the actions that have taken by the school board. The very first one. One of the main issues cited by the school district for the change is safety of the students. We believe that it should be a prime concern in our district. However, we do not want to have examples of the citing of unsafe students due to the name. Not one single police report has been filed in regards to bullying, threats, or any other actions towards students. Not one. If students are unsafe, the district has an obligation to file a police report to protect the students. Because there are no reports, one of two things has happened. Either the threats to students are being fabricated and exaggerated, or there is nothing to report, and the name safety issue is a smokescreen. There is no gray area here. Either situation presents very big concerns. What we do know is that there are instances of students currently getting bullied for what has gone on and happened with the Redmond name. The very next night, after the vote happened, at a Canyon View Cedar High basketball game, the students started chanting "snowflakes" to the Cedar student body and saying things like, "Your mascot's dead." Now I ask you, if there's been no reports in the past 13 plus years of bullying, but that happened one day after, that kind of seems like injustice to me. Sorry, I lost my place here. Currently, there are also several members of the school, students, who are being scrutinized for their views for wanting to keep the name, both native and non-native. My son being one of them who is native, or has native blood. They're being belittled and told that they are uneducated and stupid. Unfortunately, both native and non-native students have reached out and used similar examples of this. For an issue as important as this, we don't understand how there's never letters sent out to the parents or current students or any sort of assembly was ever put together by the school district. They'll send out a text telling you that the school rings are in or that there's going to be a mandatory fire drill, but they couldn't send out a public message that this was going to be a potential problem or a discussion. They used Facebook. That's not a proper form of representation for a school district. As Andrea stated, the district formed a committee to give recommendations to the school board of which way to vote. While a representative group could have been a good idea to speak for and reflect the views of the community, that unfortunately does not appear to be the case here. Rather than a randomized and fair selection process, the committee was handpicked and selected. Many have direct ties to the school board and school board members in district and/or both. Most of them report in some way, shape, or form to either the superintendent or Rich Nilsson, the secondary education, or are married to the president of the school board. Out of the 6 students that were included on this committee, not a single one of them was a Native American. I would think at a topic this big, maybe one should be. They were given this binder with information about the mascots. The information was completely one-sided and has shown poor methodology and has been deemed invalid in most of these cases through psychological boards. That presents another question. If they're worried about the kids, did they bring in psychologists to talk about their identity taken away? How they feel? What it's going to do to them? No, they haven't. Native or non-native. If these kids represent and feel that they're part of something, shouldn't they be asked what tomorrow's going to bring to them? Funding for this change has been voiced a major concern in the community. A change like this is simply not uniforms and signage. The costs associated with the change, the name is not clear. But I do have that same email that they talked about from the superintendent. I only have one copy, but I can pass it on to you guys. After receiving that email, last week I actually contacted Miss Delaney. She told me that although there is not a set price yet, that the basketball court would go under a maintenance fund, and that many outside supporters of this change are offering money. She would not reveal who, and she would not tell us how this was going to be paid for. There's no transparency there. So let's talk about that maintenance fund. Is a basketball court more important than roofs caving in on our school kids? Because multiple schools throughout this district have leaky roofs, gas leaks, holes in the wall. The list can go on and on. I would think that the concern for our children would be there and start there. We need nurses. We have one nurse per school. Maybe let's bring the funds there. It's less than that. I'm sorry. It's less than that. We have, is it 4 through the district? I'm sorry, I stand corrected. We only have 4 in the district, not 1 per school. The point that I'm getting at here is that the funds for the school district, there are much greater areas that we can use this money. Michelle Lambert stated that this is draining our resources. How? What money have we spent other than this committee, possibly, and to print this binder, that it's been draining our resources? There's been no police reports. There have been no school documentations of any bullying. So how, if this is their premise, how is this draining our resources? So we filed a Grandma report several weeks ago, and the requests and documents related to this vote, including but not limited to, we asked for all emails, minutes, recordings, printed research, files, notes, and correspondence, including any and all texts and emails. Their attorney responded within less than 12 hours, stated that our request was too vague to represent and was vastly overbroad. Do any of you think that was vague with what was asked? I'll read it one more time. We asked for all emails, minutes, recordings, printed research, files, notes, and correspondence, including any and all texts and emails. That sounds pretty clear to me. I'm not an attorney, but I don't think that that's vague. So we asked what the greater definition for the school district would be. No response. They said response cannot be given. They wouldn't answer. They're supposed to have an appeal process. We looked into that. We sent off a letter. So a decision like this, represents the mindset and impacts the direction of the community. For something that can be potentially set of course and culture of our school district, we believe transparency and true representation of the community should be paramount. What works for New York and California may not represent Iron County. What started as a name has grown into a realization that the way things have transpired is potentially more important than the name itself. With one overseeing the board and no recall process for the voter, it allows power to go unchecked and limits and abilities of citizens to make sure the voices are being represented. We sent a letter to the county clerk and asked them if they were a legislative body. We got a response back saying that they were not. With that, I hope that other avenues and opportunities for the committee are present in front of us. I have some other stuff, but like I said, they've gone over it. My contact is actually slipping, so that's why I had a hard time reading, and I apologize for that. The question that I present to you guys today, where do you guys stand on this? What is your opinion on this unlimited power that the school district seems to have?
We can't really give you our personal opinions. We can't outside of this meeting, and we haven't discussed it as a body. And if we did that, we'd need to do it here in an open meeting. So we can't really, give you our personal opinions except outside this meeting.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Taking notes to try and follow what you've said. You mentioned the appeal process and questions about an appeal process.
Yes, sir.
What have you learned about that, or where does that stand?
So we called when we found out we went to go appeal, and we looked in their own handbook. There is no appeal process in their own Iron County School District handbook. So we called the state and we asked them, and they looked it up and they said, yes, there should be an appeal process, and no, there is not one.
Who's the state?
The state school board, sorry.
Okay.
Well, and grammar law itself defines that there is a process for appeal, and if it's not codified in the local entities code, then it is actually it is laid out in, I believe it's 63G. I don't quote me on that. It's laid out in the grammar code. I don't know it off the top of my head, but
okay.
Anyway, but there is an appeal process through grammar, if nothing else.
Now, are they talking about an appeal process through grammar or an appeal for the decision itself?
Oh, maybe I misunderstood. I thought it was appealing the grammar decision.
Well, we asked for a grammar report through the school district, and their response was we were too vague. We asked for an appeal process that the handbook states that they're supposed to have, but there is not one listed. So we went to the state school board. They looked it up. There is not one. We called the school back and asked them, what is your appeal process? Apparently they're writing it now because we're still waiting.
Okay. We cut you off.
What's that?
Cut you off.
No, that was just my question.
Were you asking Commissioner Blake about the appeal process for the grammar request or for the decision itself?
No, I was asking for the appeal process of what they had found out for the decision itself.
Okay.
I assume, well, I understand grammar fairly well and know that there are appeal process through the grammar process, and if I would encourage you to follow that avenue if you feel like you didn't get the appropriate response from grammar. In fact, there is a state grammar ombudsman. I didn't know that until there was an issue earlier this year. That is the kind of the be-all end-all guru of all questions grammar. And you can Google that. I don't know. I can't remember her name, but Rosemary. That does sound familiar. But I mean, I know there is an appeal process through the grammar.
We're currently trying to work on that. It's just, like I said, getting turned down from their attorneys. That was shocking.
Sure.
Can I just say one thing? We have one of the members of Voice did follow the appeal process to the state school board, and they told him specifically that the school district is supposed to have an appeal process. I've made 2 calls to the state school board this morning. They haven't been returned to show us where that's documented. So that's what we're following up right now, besides talking to attorneys.
You know, there was a gentleman at the state school board that I spoke with after we had, and I did want to correct one thing. You didn't send me a letter. There was a group that wanted to put it as a referendum on the ballot.
Correct. I'm sorry.
And that's okay. I just want to clarify that.
Sure.
But in that, I anticipated that we would probably not be able to allow that because of the reasons stated. And so I actually called the state school board, and they have an ombudsman that was really helpful with me and had a lot of ideas on other avenues that the citizenry could take. So I'd be happy to sit down with you maybe offline and at least talk about some of the things he said and give you his name.
I would appreciate
very helpful.
I would appreciate that. Any other questions for us? Is anybody able to make a comment on how they feel?
we really can't do that in a public meeting. That's not appropriate. But we have, you know, it's a free country. We've allowed you to come and air your concerns here in a public meeting. And to all that are here, and we have, I don't know how many we have on average listening, but this is, you know, put out on video. So there's a number of people that watch this meeting. So as an official action, that's all we can do at this point. But you're welcome to talk to us individually and see what our opinion is as a private citizen.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks
so much.
I would just as maybe a parting, not a parting shot, a parting comment. I appreciate the fact that you're going through this process the way that you're going through, as far as forming an actual PAC and working through the correct channels of the political process instead of the torches and pitchfork method. It's refreshing to see a group of citizens actually working through the process, and I applaud you for that. Thank you very much for you educated me with some things. I appreciate that very much.
And I'll echo that too. And without Mr. Chair, without expressing my opinion, try not to. Looking at this issue from 10,000 feet, I'm concerned as a citizen of where we're headed as a culture, as a people. You know, the other day I heard on the news that people were saying that Dr. Seuss writings are racist, and you know, where are we headed as a society? I mean, is the Thunderbirds next? SU Thunderbirds, the Warriors in Snow Canyon, my Red Devils from Moab, where I'm from. You know, where does this go? I mean, and I'm not just, so I'm trying to be neutral here as far as the Redmond issue, but as a society, I appreciate your group taking a stand, because if we don't, I think one person said, you know, we're going to have to give every school a zip code so we don't offend anybody. And so, anyway, that's my comment.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And again, I think there's much bigger issues, especially when there's no report, not a single report of actual bullying. But the day after, kids are getting called names. That doesn't seem right with me. Thank you guys for your time.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, please.
If anybody has any questions as to the memorandum that I provided to our good clerk too, I'm happy to answer those. If anybody's has any questions regarding that, I'm happy to speak with you afterwards or whenever.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. Please state
My
your
name's
name.
Jeff Corey, and I'm also part of Voice. And I would like to address a little different issue than what you've heard for the last half hour here. Voices of Iron County Education. I taught in Iron County for 33 years at Cedar High School, and before that I taught 10 years at Union High School in northeastern Utah. And last May I retired from teaching. Voice isn't just about Redmond, although I'm fully on board with what's been said here. I want to address another issue that I'm concerned about and should be included in Voice. That issue is concerned with instruction time. Uh, 4 years ago, Christina McGuire and myself spoke to the Iron County School Board. She teaches French. I taught German and drive red after school and so forth, so I could live in a house. But anyway, at that time, and it's still going on right now, and I'll get to another issue also in a second, a new program or institution was brought on board by Superintendent Shannon Delaney, and that was called Late Start Wednesday. Are any of you acquainted with Late Start Wednesday? Any of you out here? Yeah. Two? Okay. Late Start Wednesday means the kids go to school on Wednesday at 20 minutes to 10 instead of 10 minutes to 8. One of the purposes of that was to have struggling students come in and get extra help. Faculty meetings were held, department meetings were held, teachers worked in the rooms were held during this late start, this extra time. As part of the presentation, Mrs. McGuire and myself made a presentation and showed how much instruction time was being lost because of this late start. Every once in a while in class, I'd say, how many slept in today? That was on a Wednesday. Hands shooting up everywhere. Okay? Tuesday night's another Friday night. Now we got 3 Friday nights, Saturday night, Friday night, and Tuesday night. Okay? Anyway, a lot of instruction time was being missed. And after the presentations were made, they knew that we were coming in for that reason, and they came loaded with positives as to why it was a great idea. Then during the discussion time, after we'd made our presentations and members of the board or those in favor had said some things, I made a comment, and that was that the worst attendance day, tardy attendance, okay, coming to school, was Wednesday. You wouldn't think that'd be the case. I mean, man, you don't have to be to school till 20 to 10. Anyway, I made that comment. I says, Danny Lewis has told me. Danny Lewis happens to be the vice principal of Cedar High, in case people are wondering who Danny Lewis is. He told me that was the worst day of attendance. And Mrs. Delaney says, we're working on that. Okay, time goes on. A year ago, while I was still teaching school, a year ago, September, I believe it was, we were in a faculty meeting at Cedar High, and we were told that Cedar High was mandated to hold something called intervention time. Intervention time was tried out at Canyon View High School during the 2017-18 year, while Rich Nilsson was still the principal, or maybe it was the year before, because he's in his second year as secondary head. And intervention time was to be for students to be let out of during the school day, and they were going to go get help with courses they were struggling in. Go to the biology class, they get tagged by a teacher to go to math or whatever. And that's what intervention time was, they were going to be used that. And we were mandated we were going to have that at Cedar High starting this year, 2018, 2019. So that's in place. Right now at Cedar High School, 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, the kids get out of class for 40 minutes, go to who they're being tagged to, whatever teacher says, hey, this guy's struggling, have him come to my room, come to my room. And I guess the kids that aren't tagged stay in their advisory group. We have advisory groups, okay? I brought this up at the last school board meeting. We were only allowed 1 minute to comment at the last school board meeting. That was pretty short. And I brought up the intervention time. Addressed Mr. Nilsson. He kind of said, well, that's John Dodds' situation. Well, of course, the mandate didn't come from John Dodds. He's the principal of Cedar High School. The mandate came from the district. I figured out how much instruction time is being missed by each individual student who's on a regular schedule at Cedar High. 154 hours a year with late start Wednesday and the 40 minutes of intervention time. Over the course of a year, with those two things, the late start and the intervention time, 154 hours of instructions being missed by the regular students at Cedar High School, which is, of course, 616 hours over their high school career since high school starts in the 9th grade. I approached Mrs. Delaney at the end of the meeting after it was all over, stayed for the end of the school board meeting, and that morning I'd called Cedar High School. I talked to Allison Palmer, the attendance secretary, and I says, is late start Wednesday still the worst? This is 2 weeks ago now. I says, is late start Wednesday still the worst attendance day at the high school? He said, yes. I mentioned that to the superintendent, and I says, nothing's been done. I says, that was a smoke screen or it was a bluff or whatever you gave me 4 years ago. She says, actually, we've done some things. We pulled people aside and the kids that are late, and we've worked with them. Anyway, I went over to Mr. Nilsson, and I figured he was passing the buck, and I mentioned that, but because he didn't answer my question, he referred to Mr. Dodds. He says, well, I didn't understand your question. About the intervention time, I'm talking now. And I mentioned the fact that I'd taught for all these years, and I intervened before school, I intervened at lunch, and I intervened after school. I can help those kids. Before school, lunch, after school. And he said, this is 2 weeks ago now, he says, we would have accepted that. We would have accepted that for intervention time as your program, before school, at lunch, and after school. Those were the words out of his mouth. Now, he was a principal at Canyon View High School. I don't know for how many years, but many years. And I would think that you would know that teachers are already doing that. But nonetheless, more time was stolen to intervene with those struggling kids. I don't think that kind of stuff really illustrates self-discipline of the students and the youth. Give them another Friday night. And do a whole lot of instruction time with a whole lot of instruction with the time that's been stolen. Of course, I'm not there this year for the intervention, but I would hope that you'll consider some things, and if there's any way we can have your support. Like I say, this voice is not just Redmond. There's other things going on that I feel needs to be addressed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
You have a couple more minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
Something I forgot when Mr. Cousins was talking. So the whole social agenda, the racist issue, is an old issue. It's been going on for 40 years. This first started happening in about 1980. And so what I thought when you would study this is go back to those school districts that used that excuse to get rid of the Native American imagery and see how those Native American students are doing. If there are higher graduation rates, less alcoholism, less drug abuse, less suicide, how are they doing? If that was the reason they're giving to change the name, then we have 40 years of evidence. Of status, we should be able to find out. The funny thing is there's been no studies done. Nobody knows, because the people that wanted the change didn't stick around to find out if it really helped. They went on to the next unsuspecting school district. And that is a tragedy in society. So that is why the Native American Guardians Association is helping us understand the new narrative that is actual and real. And that is educate, don't eradicate. Because that's the way we all come together, rather than this divisive social agenda that's been pushed on for so long. And I wanted to say that after you reminded me I had forgotten. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Hey, well, item number 3, ordinance 2019-3 regarding the disposition of real property. John, you want to take that? Read through your iteration, and it looks very good to me. Yeah, I've got it in the pack.
I was just going to pull it up here. So this is the second, I'm off a little bit on my center, aren't I? So this is the second stab at this ordinance that we've kind of taken. We had quite a bit of discussion last time about how to summarize and what to include on this. We were able to meet with staff offline earlier last week and get some feedback. So to review, Utah Code Section 1753.12.5b says that each county shall by ordinance define what constitutes a significant parcel of real property and reasonable notice for purposes of disposing of significant parcels. And so we defined significant parcel as a parcel of real property whose assessed value by the Iron County assessor at the time Iron County acquired said parcel to be $10,000 or greater. We defined reasonable notice as before disposing of a significant parcel, Iron County shall publish in a newspaper of general circulation, the Utah Public Notice website, and the Iron County Courthouse notice of an opportunity for public comment for at least 14 days. What we found was that met that law, but that there was a few other questions. We had for years had this list of tax sale properties that the clerk would sell for a fixed price that ostensibly was approved by the commission. But it didn't count parcels that Iron County received in another way. There are some individuals who realize that they own what I affectionately call, one of our 15,000 or so junk parcels out in the West Desert that are either very small or isolated or difficult to locate. And oftentimes those individuals, rather than have it go to tax sale, will simply just deed it to Iron County. And so we have a pretty significant number of those types of parcels. So we wanted to capture not only tax sale, but parcels received in another way, so that we can dispose of parcels. Iron County does not want to be in the property ownership business. We have land and parcels that we own that are serve the purposes of the county, and we're talking about parcels that are not directly involved in our service to the county. So there was a section of Iron County Code. Oh, what have I done? Sorry. I didn't get that in there. Okay, so what we did is we, as part of that ordinance, we added sections M, N, and O to the Iron County Code, section 2.36. For whatever reason, the iteration that I sent you didn't have that, but this is it, and that's way too small to read. And I think if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to read through it, and then we can kind of talk about the details, because there's kind of a lot in here.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So we incorporated what this ordinance says, and then we kind of talked about some of the implications and how Iron County would handle those moving forward. So under Section M, significant parcels of real property are defined as parcels whose assessed value by the Iron County assessor at the time Iron County acquired said parcels is greater than $10,000. Parcels that do not meet said definition may be placed at the discretion of the Board of County Commissioners on a, quote, surplus list of insignificant real property. Said list shall be approved by the Board of County Commissioners at least once per year and shall be publicly available via the website ironcounty.net. All pertinent information regarding each, quote, insignificant parcel shall be included on said list, including the minimum acceptable bid. The Iron County Clerk's Office shall maintain said list, and any offers to purchase an insignificant parcel shall be made in writing by the Iron County Clerk. Say again?
To the Iron County Clerk.
Oh, did I read that wrong?
Should apply.
Oh, yes, no. To the Iron County Clerk, thank you. A 1-week waiting period shall be observed once an offer is made on an insignificant parcel. If no other offers are made, the Iron County Clerk's Office shall prepare a deed and record it in the office of the Iron County Recorder once payment is received. In the event that multiple parties express interest in the same insignificant parcel, sealed written bids shall be accepted for 1 week, and the parcel shall be sold to the highest bidder. Minimum acceptable bids for each insignificant parcel shall be set by the Board of County Commissioners each year and shall be based on taxes, fees, penalties, and interest if acquired by tax sale. Insignificant parcels, and I'm sorry that this is so wordy, insignificant parcels that are acquired by means other than tax sale shall be assigned a minimum bid of the assessed value by the Iron County Assessor at the time Iron County...
Got at the time.
Oh, I repeated that, didn't I? That was okay. That was Saturday afternoon. At the time Iron County acquired said parcel. After 2 years on the list, all insignificant parcels shall have a minimum bid of $350. So we kind of spoke about this ad nauseum with staff, and so that $350 was my doing, and I certainly have no ego invested in any of this. Notwithstanding the process, this is now Section N, notwithstanding the process outlined regarding the surplus list of insignificant real property, the Board of County Commissioners may withhold parcels from said list, cause that a more stringent process be applied to dispose of any insignificant parcel, or modify the minimum bid of any insignificant parcel on the list. One of the hard things that we had in our discussions with staff was to try and in our attempts to standardize things, we kept thinking, well, no, what if the commissioner should be able to override that? So if there was a parcel, even though it might be a regular subdivision parcel, it was strategic for some reason that you want to withhold from the list, or maybe our minimum is too high or too low. I think bringing it before the commission at least once a year is important to be able to, for the commissioners to be able to say, let's change this, let's leave that alone, or we're okay with it the way it is. I also think that as parcels come to Iron County, I would like to be able to bring the list before the commissioners, maybe even more than once a year, to approve those parcels to be on the list. And then Section O talks about the notice requirements.
John, I have a
Yes.
question. So you talked about those really small parcels that were created years ago.
Correct.
If there's no interest in those, can the county combine adjoining properties to make it a larger, more attractive piece to someone?
I think so. One of the challenges is we seldom get them as a block. There are private individuals who, there's one individual, he's a mover and a shaker, and he's always looking for, if we own this piece and he owns that piece and that other guy owns that piece, if we do some kind of triangular arbitrage, because he's trying to get full blocks of like Burrell Town site. And there have been examples of full blocks of Burrell Town site that are now under a pivot out there. Well, they're under wheel lines, but so it's a fair point. I think an action like that would have to come before the commission and not just be an automatic action.
Sure.
The other way that's a little bit fraught is there are already parcels on that list that were combined by private individuals, then lost to tax sale. that are like the north 2/3 of this lot and the south 1/3 of this lot, and it actually is more than okay, that example was bad because that's exactly one lot, but there are some that are more than one lot whose current minimum is higher. We have some of those minimums that were like $1,500. I actually feel like our minimums were a bit high, but they did reflect the fact that some of those lots are larger that are currently on the list. That was weird.
So if they're aggregated, then could they be added to the surplus that is not
Insignificant? Yeah, and that would be, yeah, that would have to be, we're talking about the insignificant list is something that can happen, not necessarily bringing every one of them before the commission. So on a significant parcel, then each of those would come before the commission. Currently, we have the old Fiddler's Canyon building listed for sale, and if anyone purchases that building, then that would have to be done and approved by the Board of Commissioners because it's a significant parcel. Yeah. So I know you guys love to hear me continue to read. Section O, notwithstanding any public notice requirements as set forth in this section, and I do want to talk about those a little bit. At a minimum, Iron County shall publish in a newspaper of general circulation, the Utah Public Notice website, that's pmn.utah.gov, and post at the Iron County Courthouse notice of an opportunity for public comment for at least 14 days before disposing of any significant parcel of real property. And I wrote it that way because earlier in this section, there are notice requirements for a couple of different ways to dispose of property. For example, to do a public auction requires 30 days notice. And so I didn't want to counteract anything that was already there, basically just saying, at a minimum, Iron County shall provide 14 days public notice before we dispose of anything to allow for public comment, notwithstanding anything else that was written in this section. So that's what I have done. Any comments on all that?
Looks good to me. I appreciate your work on this, John.
Well, thank you. Mr. Pressgrove?
The question I have is, M and N are talking about surplus list of insignificant real property.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden in O, you jump to significant parcels of real property?
It's kind of a non sequitur, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dan?
Also, and this is Rob's point, you might not want to reference the exact website. You may want to reference it more generically. That way, if it ever changes, you don't have to go back.
So we're not married to the whatever. I like that.
Rob's learned that by hard experience.
We appreciate Rob came in and actually sat with us on our staff meeting a little bit. He's got a separate issue that they'll have to work out with the commission a little bit later, but appreciate his good feedback. So remove the exact references. I like. Anything else, Dan? Any other comments? Christine, you weren't able to come that day. You were out of town. Any comments on this and the process, and especially as it relates to what you do?
I don't think so. We talked about it Friday night.
Yeah, we did have a minute.
Gary and I kind of talked it around this morning, so I think we're good.
We hashed this back and forth from about every angle for about 3 hours.
I think Chanel's ready to beat us up if we play devil's advocate one more time during that meeting.
I think we're at a good place.
Okay. So the only other question, go ahead.
Would you reiterate the suggested change and show us on here? Because I think even though we may want to make some small tweaks, we could still have a motion including the tweaks that would be made.
Okay. Let me just make my note here. So what Rob had suggested, and I haven't forgotten you, Bill, was instead of expressly saying ironcounty.net, maybe just, and in fact, state code usually says stuff like this. It will say the county's website or the public notice website. Instead of actually giving the URL address, just state it like that. So I would remove the exact reference and just say Iron County's website. I'm not knowing what's going on with these TVs. Okay. And then the other concern I had, and I had made kind of an executive decision, and was this minimum 350. That's lower than, oops, right here. That's lower than anything we have on the list. But it's not, one of the things we had talked about with staff was to maybe, whatever the price was, cut it in half after 2 years. Basically to say, we might have a revolving door on some of these parcels, but we don't really want to be in the ownership business. We want to unload these. And so we were going to take whatever the original price was and cut it in half, which is what we could do. Or, and this was what I kind of landed on as I was writing it on Saturday, was to just have everything go to a minimum bid of 350.
I had a little concern as I read that, but with the after 2 years on the list, so it has ample time for anyone to bid on it. I don't have that big of a problem with 350.
Okay, we would have, if we went that other way, we would kind of have to go back and figure out. What we found was the current surplus list has like $500 and $1,500 and $2,500 minimum bids right now. Bids that are much higher than we probably would have moving forward with this. And so if we cut those in half, or if we went back to taxes, penalties, fees, and interest, those numbers would get significantly smaller. And then if we also said shall be one half, you know, a $2,500 parcel may turn into a, you know, $280 parcel as far as the minimum. And I'm okay with that. I wanted to kind of bring that to light to kind of talk that through.
Yeah, well, I don't know that we'd want to be below, you know, interest, penalties, on taxes, interest, and penalties.
So we actually had a fairly lengthy discussion on this topic, and it came under the heading of sunk cost. At what point do you just eat that cost? Because you're right, there's kind of sunk cost and let's move forward, but also taxpayer dollars paid for that title search, for the staff time, and so I kind of ended up with 350 to kind of be a middle ground. Dan, did you have any input at this point?
There's a
or Cindy?
Going too low. See, at first I was advocating that we drop this to taxes at some point to get these properties back out there. The problem is some of these properties are, by their nature, gonna slingshot back around to us anyways, because there really no much value in owning them. It's a sliver, or there's not anything you can do with it practically. Which the problem there is, we're going to end up with it again. We're going to have to incur all those costs again to do a title search and to do all that stuff.
In other words, when somebody picks it up at a really good deal, stops paying taxes for 5 years.
Realizes, oh,
yeah.
Come back to us. So we don't want to go too low and have these properties revolving in and out, because there's real costs that happen with that. So again, I think we need a floor on it. We don't want to go too low. And I've come full circle on that. Because first
we really have come all the way around, haven't we?
Anything that's really reasonable, out. We don't need to own that. But
Cindy? And I apologize, Cindy. You were gone, and we had the meeting.
I don't have a problem with the 350, but there might be some confusion for taxpayers at some point, because we do have a minimum value for taxes. So it might be valued at 350, but they're going to be taxed on 500 regardless. So that might cause some confusion.
That's actually a really valid concern, and I wrestled with that one because your minimum value for any real property is 500, correct? Yeah. And so if we say the minimum bid is 350, we're already 150 under that.
We're not saying that's the minimum value. We're saying that's the minimum bid. Because there's already a lot of properties on the list at 400 and something.
That's true.
And that's the minimum bid to get it from us, because they're just paying back taxes and some fees. It's not saying anything about the value of the land. But I think you want to maybe word that so that it can't be construed. Then you have somebody come in with a comparable saying, that's lower than minimum value.
And we'll say, yeah, that's what we can put the value on at 350, but it's still going to be taxed at 500, just because the system has to have a minimum
That is the, so would you change the wording there? It's kind of, I've blown it up as much. It says, after 2 years on the list, all insignificant parcels shall have a minimum bid of $350.
I think that's fine because it's the bid, it's not the value. I just wanted to make aware of that at some point might come up. But we'll deal with it because it'll come to my office.
Should we change it to 500 just because someone might be upset, or that they're being valued for 500 even though they paid 350? I don't know.
It's a fair question.
Just kicking it around.
That's why, John, it seems like if we have, some parcels floating around that are joining, we can aggregate those as a county and make them worth more. So the chances of that boomeranging back to us would be less.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Now, that you bring up a good point in that after 2 years, even those ones that are aggregated a little bit are going to drop to 350 based on this. And if you can pick up a Burrell Town site lot, which is 50 by 142 feet, 0.16 acres, or I can pick up 2 1/4 acres it's a little bit further out, closer to the railroad tracks, but it's the same price. That was one of the concerns I had about just kind of having a generic floor. But at the same time, the impetus behind that was to get them to move.
I would think we would not do surplus. We would put them on a regular tax sale if we went to the effort of doing that, wouldn't we?
Well, those have already been through the tax sale.
Right, but if we aggregate them, could we do it again, is what I'm saying.
Well,
as a bigger
we
piece.
We can, but that's just not very often is that an option because of the way they come to us. I mean,
the other thing that we could do is as the list comes before you, we could look at some of those and maybe override whatever that minimum was because and just still keep them on the surplus list. They're well below the $10,000 amount. And maybe what we would do is the clerk would just have to maybe address those with the commission or approve it as you move forward. And it would, because some of them may sit there for a while. There's not a lot of improvement.
That's not too much trouble. That might be a good option.
And I think this section N, basically kind of gives the commission broad discretion to be able to, override prices or pull parcels from the list, modify that minimum bid. Yeah, and that was a tough one. I pondered that one for a while. So if you'd like that approach, we can do that. That would be a little more piecemeal, a little bit one at a time. The other thing, too, is remember the list would be published on the website, and that is the list people go by. And we would bring not a wholly revamped list, but each year as the tax sale happens or as we acquire some other properties through those other means, bring it before the commission. And the other ones that maybe you had tweaked in the past, we don't necessarily have to relitigate every time. Because you would approve, I think I would want to present it as the list, and then and you would approve it as a single pass. So the onus would essentially be on you all at the time of approving that list.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right. So, Bill, the more I think about it, one of the reasons that O comes after is because we talk about what a significant parcel is in M. Although I do say significant parcel right there. We could move O up in front of M, and okay. I don't have any problem with that if the commissioners are okay with that. It mentions significant parcel, and then the very next section would define what that means. So
John, I just have one question. The only part that applies to my office, it says that the clerk's office will record those deeds in the recorder's office.
Yes.
I know you know that there's a fee for those, so in my mind, you should give the deed to the people and they should record it. County shouldn't be recording deeds for people, and they certainly shouldn't be paying for them.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I left that off. I left it that way on purpose because Well, historically, we've just taken care of it. Oftentimes, people will just mail in a thing, and I guess I could mail them the deed or whatever. But I'm okay with that. If
Telling you the fee though, because the fee.
Yes, no, we do not. We do. The county does not pay that fee. Yeah, never has.
Because that's never good when people come back and say, "Why is the county paying for that person's deeds? They're not paying for my deeds."
Oh no, right. Yeah. And to be clear, if a deed goes to a municipality, the recorder's office can waive the fee. But if it ever goes to a private individual, then the fee has to apply. That's law. So would you suggest a change there then, Carrie, maybe, on the verbiage?
It doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying that it probably should be the person's responsibility to record it.
I could even just take out that entire bit that says, "Oh, now all my monitors
Are you going to say the fee's on top of your $350 minimum bid, or does that include the fee?
Well, no, what I could do is just take that whole section right out and just say, shall prepare the deed once payment is received, period. And I don't know that I need to add the minutia of whatever my office does to the ordinance. Right. And so I did want to kind of get the 35,000 foot, and that's what I was going for. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, good point. We need to take that out.
Okay.
In my opinion, if the others are fine.
So basically, we're gonna change the order and move that public notice part to the beginning. We're gonna remove the exact verbiage for the website. We're gonna leave the $350 floor, and we're gonna take out the part that says the clerk shall record it, and basically just say shall prepare a deed once payment is received. And I think that's all the changes that we've encapsulated.
And we can, if you gentlemen want to go forward, we can do that with putting those changes in the motion. So is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and move that we approve ordinance 2019-3 regarding the disposition of real property with including the changes that we've discussed by John.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 2019-3 regarding the disposition of real property with the changes that have been discussed today. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much for all the work on that.
Yeah, thank you. 329.
Item number 4, discussion and possible selection of a financial advisor for Iron County.
I can give a quick background, and Reed's been involved with this, and I know Alma has, so if you need any, if I misspeak, go ahead and correct me. Feel free. Let me tell this in chronological order, the way we kind of went about this. In 2017, we engaged George K. Baum Company as our municipal advisor. Sometimes it's the phrase financial advisor is used, sometimes the phrase municipal advisor is used. The technically correct term is municipal advisor. Since the law changed a little bit after the financial crash, a lot of things happened, Dodd-Frank Act, all these things. One of the things that came out of that is the SEC really pushed hard to say that there needs to be a separation between your financial advisor, who gives you advice and helps you solicit and do bonds and really helps you through that process, and your bond attorney and the company who either actually buys those bonds or sells them and so forth. They need to have a split. The biggest reason is they want the municipal advisor to be on the side of the municipality 100%. Their fiduciary duty is to give it good advice that is not in their own self-interest. That's why they don't want them acting in multiple roles. So anyways, our contract with George K. Baum expired in February 1st of 2019. So technically, we're in a limbo stage with them. We don't have a current agreement. We were just going to renew that to do another 2 years with George K. Baum, and Zion's Public Finance says, well, hang on a second. You guys have an outstanding agreement with us that's been in effect since 2008. I asked for them to send a copy of that, and sure enough, January 1st, 2008, we entered into an agreement with them to be a financial advisor. This was before the kind of the language and the law changed a little bit. And there was no sunset provision or expiration date on that contract. And so they really haven't said a bunch about it. We've gone and issued bonds and used George K. Baum, and George K. Baum's contract is a little bit more, the language is a little more direct. They are our advisor. Zion's Bank's, that older contract, the language is a little bit looser. But still, technically they're our advisor. In order to get out of that contract, we need to send them a 30-day notice. Either party can do a 30-day notice and expire that contract. So where we're at right now is we have George K. Baum seeking to extend a contract that technically now has expired, and we have Zion's saying, we're not trying to push you guys, but we would like an opportunity to bid on it. Technically, with this sort of an arrangement, we don't have to put it out to bid according to our policy. We certainly can, but bottom line, you really have three options. One, go with George K. Baum. If you do that, you probably ought to send a 30-day notice to Zion's first and probably wait that 30-day period. I'd hate to be in a situation legally, and Chad can weigh in on this if he needs to, where we have two advisors on purpose. I think that'd be a bad choice. Two, we could say we just stick with Zion's because we have an agreement. The problem with that is the wording really isn't up to date legally, and it really needs to be according to that code, and that's federal code. That's the MSRB Municipal Standards Rulemaking Board Rule G42 requires a lot of that stuff to be kind of dialed in. So even if we were to stay with Zion's, I would say let's get a new contract. Of course, the third option would be we just go ahead and put it out to bid and go. And I don't have any preference whatsoever. George K. Baum is great. Zion's Public Finance is great. I know we have relationships with both of the firms. They go to most of these county functions, and they got good people there. So did I cover everything? Reed, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just only say that we did enter in with George K. Baum because I was just not aware of what we had with Zions.
You've probably gone quite a few years since we'd issued any bonds, and they had turnover with,
When you say put it out to bid, what, I mean, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
So when you say put it out to bid, I mean, what are they bidding?
So there's actual
they're a financial
costs.
advisor to sell us bonds when the time arises?
So basically, and I can give you a real quick, and this would probably help,
I mean,
you guys and the public. This is the purpose of a municipal advisor. It's one paragraph. The issuer deems it in its best interest to engage and retain George K. Baum, right? This is on that contract, but I thought it explains it well. An independent registered municipal advisor firm to provide certain municipal advisory services to the issuer, that's us, including but not limited to the preparation of supporting data, bond market information, assistance in obtaining bond ratings, and assistance in investor negotiations regarding various issuer projects, which may result from time to time in the issuance of bonds, notes, refunding bonds, and or the use of other financial instruments. So basically, we only use these guys if we're going to issue bonds.
Okay. So that their price is included in the bond. They don't charge us another fee?
It depends. They don't really. There are certain things that they want to do a set fee, and in some of these contracts, they mention some of those fees. And in some cases, the bonds can take a lot of extra time and work and meetings, and they'll kind of bid as they go, or they'll say this is how much it's going to cost, and then we can kind of negotiate with them or whatnot. But there are some things that they really can bid on, and they can say this is our cost to do X, this is our cost to do Y. If you want to go in get your ratings, updated with Moody's, this is our cost to do all that work for you. And so we can, kind of narrow it down, but I don't have any sort of gut feel as to who is cheaper or better right now at this point.
Well, I was here. I was commissioner at the time we did that, and I same as Reed. I had no idea we had that agreement with Zions when we went with George K. Baum, because we had that was the first one I think we'd done after I was elected. But anyway, but you know, and Zions is coming in, you know, very gentlemanlike and saying, you know, they're not demanding anything, and George K. Baum has been stellar. I mean, you know, and they're both great groups, and Zions does bring us the chocolate. That's a little bit on. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. Anyway, I really think we should put it out for RFP and let them each give a proposal and go from there to be fair to everybody. That's my thoughts.
I would agree with that.
I'm on board with that as well.
Do you? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We ought to send our cancellation notice.
Send the 30-day notice and then
clean that up.
RFP.
Other than the issuance of bonds and them helping with that, how many times do we need consulting with other things that would cost us money? So why not just have an RFP every time we have that come up and let them bid on it at each time?
That's possible.
We could. That's a bit arduous.
Yeah, it's just an extra step. For example, you know, it's just knowing who to call and ask about things.
I see.
Yeah, we do use them quite often.
So it's like having somebody on a retainer where you can call and ask questions.
Like, for instance, on the assessment areas, I called George K. Baum and says, what are the current interest rates? He did a little schedule, showed me 4 projects that had been bonded in the last 2 years, what the interest rates on those were for similar road projects.
Okay.
When we were preparing the application for CIB, he did an amortization schedule showing what the principal and interest would be for $2.5 million and $5 million, the schedule time, and it's just consulting with that person and saying, you know, what's the market, what's going on, how much would it cost to do this, and so having somebody, I think we need to have somebody all the time we can call and consult with as we have projects come up instead of having to figure out who we're going to use on a particular project.
And did he send us an invoice for that?
No.
Generally.
Okay. So generally they're
that's a service that they provide, so that it's kind of built in that when we actually go to bond,
that's where they make their money.
and that kind of like an engineer preparing a bid, you know, they hope in consulting that they'll get the project, but with that, then they send us a bill for the bonding, and it incurs those other ancillary costs.
I just don't understand when you say put it out to bid. Then what they're bidding on? They're just trying to sell their wares and
their services.
Services.
It's an RFP.
Services.
They would have it written.
They're not it's a request for qualifications, maybe an RFP
Right.
that you interview and say who's better suited to
Got
do
it.
this work.
Okay.
Now let's go with RFQ if you're amenable.
They do in the contracts specify, yeah, a few little things like that.
Always negotiated those, and that's what I like about the RFQ over an RFP, and say this, we're gonna lock in this price, and then, you know, it's a $10 million bond, we're ended up paying a percentage that may cost us more. Sometimes it depends on how much work is required for a particular project. That sometimes they're really involved, and sometimes they're not very much, and if we have a fee for a particular amount, that end up costing us more usually.
Yeah, but it is definitely good to have one that we have an agreement with, because I've called George K. Baum numerous times, you know, in between, and got information from him. So I think that's important.
I did just for the record. I asked Zions. I said, because there's a lot of pieces nowadays to do bonds. It's funny. We keep getting bills from different attorney firms for months afterwards, but you have your municipal advisor, and you have the bond counsel, which is your attorney, and sometimes they'll wear different hats, different firms, and then a lot of times you'll have, and this is one of my concerns with the old Zions contract, it actually talks about in there that they can buy the bonds or sell them, and nowadays that's one of the big issues, is that they have to be very separate, and so that's one of my problems with their old contract. But then you'll have, and I asked Zions, I said, well, would you rather be involved in the selling of these bonds if we issue bonds, or would you rather be our municipal advisor? I mean, which would you rather? And they said, hands down, municipal advisor. That's where they would rather be. And I don't know if there's more money in it or if that's what they specialize in, but I think that's what most of these firms would rather do. But anyways.
One other comment is I think it's really important the relationship between the municipal advisor and bond counsel. They work closely together. We've used Ballard Spar. They've changed to Gilmore Bell. That's who we've gone with. Their office with George K. Baum right in the same building. They're just downstairs. They walk documents back and forth. That's been a good relationship, and I think that would be part of what we would consider during an RFQ, is a relationship with bond counsel. I'm sure that any municipal advisor can work with any bond counsel. It's just that relationship I think is important and does save us money in the long run.
And I think the whole reason why we want to get moving on this is we may have some upcoming bond issues depending on what happens with the CIB loan or whatever, and we need to get our ducks in a row. So the assessment areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other discussion? Not, I would entertain a motion.
I would move to move forward as follows. First, send a 30-day notice to Zions, ending our current relationship with them, and then put it out for a request for qualifications to make a determination who the financial advisor should be.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we move forward with sending Zions a rescission notice, and then we put this out for RFQ for financial advisor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks so much. Okay, we'll adjourn as the County Commission and convene as a Board of Equalization. First item, or the only item, number 5, review and approve or deny applications from religious, educational, and charitable organizations. A, requesting continued real and personal property tax exempt status for 2019 as exempted last year. B, review to approve or deny new applications submitted this year requesting personal and real property tax exempt status. Christine Louder, Deputy Auditor, here for that. Thank you, Christine.
Madam, thank you.
Take them off so I can see. Okay, sorry that there was nothing information-wise in your packets, but I was on vacation last week. The first page, the top page, is a list of all of the changes that individuals are requesting. And it's either that they have purchased new properties that they are requesting be considered tax exempt, or that they sold a property. And this is either real or personal property, being vehicles, trailers, cars that they may use as part of their organization. So if it's okay, I'd just like to go down item by item so that overall we can make a decision on what to do for these. The Archaeological Conservancy, that is a group, I believe they are out of Texas, no, New Mexico, and they own 2 parcels of land, and I kind of put the address off to the side there. There really wasn't an address, so I just kind of sort of made it up on what they were close to, but it's out by the cemetery, north of the cemetery in Paraguna, and basically it's Indian mounds. They have applied in prior years for the number that starts with a C. We denied it in 2017, and they took it to the state tax commission, and the state tax commission upheld their request to be tax exempt. So for the tax year 2017, they were tax exempt. 2018, they failed to apply at all, and so they were put back on the tax roll. And then this year they did apply, and so it's the serial number starts with a C again, and then this A number. It's just a very narrow strip that runs north and south. It almost looks like maybe they would use it for a road or access to the larger parcel. So based on the fact that the state tax commission has in the past approved their request to have an exempt status, I would suggest that we allow them that exempt status again this year. I mean, we can deny it and they go to the state and then the state tells us to give it to them. So this will just save us a step, I think. The next one, Cedar City Housing Authority. They have purchased a new property. It's located at 370 West, 1425 North, number 27 in Cedar City. The changes for the Cedar Hospital, formerly IHC, they had a number of different account numbers. They consolidated them down. This B1-30, that property is the actual hospital and the grounds there, the parking lot and whatnot. And then the number below that no longer exists. That was part of the consolidation. So that number doesn't exist anymore. The Cedar City or the Cedar Valley LDS Ward is requesting exempt status for a trailer that they use for scouting. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has added a 2018 Subaru Legacy to their fleet in Cedar City. And then there are 3 additional properties that they have requested exempt status on, and they're there in Temple Cove in the Westview Estates area. Diamond Z English Shire Foundation, they have added a horse trailer to their organization. Henry's Place is a new one this year. It is located at 3542 South Bumblebee Drive. It is a total sum of 14.15 acres. I have been discussing this property with Trevor in the assessor's office, and he was aware of that area out there and this Henry's Place. What it will be is a place for kind of at-risk kids to go, and they use that facilities. They will also make it available for other organizations to use. There is currently a building on there that is in use, and they are under construction. We're not really sure what, but they are moving dirt on a large area out there. And so in talking with Trevor this morning, he feels that 12 acres of the 14.15 acres should be considered tax exempt, but the remaining 2.15 would remain taxable until at some point they started using that, building on it or making ball fields or whatever they're going to put out there. The International Church of the Foursquare, last year they purchased 5 acre. Do you know where it's at? It's the old roller skating rink there on North Main and Cedar. It's that building. They purchased 5 acres north of that building last year, or in 2017, and requested that the entire 5 acres be considered as tax exempt because they used it for parking, overflow parking. And so we denied them that request. We gave them exempt status for 1 acre. They did appeal to the State Tax Commission, and the State Tax Commission denied their request and upheld our 1 acre decision. This year they are requesting the 5 acres again. They have put, I believe it's one of those 20-foot pods like we had in the back of the building here. in the back for storage, and it's almost right up as close as they can get to the freeway, which is quite a distance from the building. It really doesn't make sense that it's clear out there. But after talking with Cindy, is she here? Oh, I can see you. See your shoulder. That we feel that, excuse me, that the 1 acre would still be more than enough to exempt. That they, even adding that little pod in the back, should not give them the exempt status on the additional 4 acres. So, you know, based on that information, you can make your decision, or we can talk about it some more. Utah Housing Corporation, I've been going kind of around and around with that one this morning. I called Josh at the State Tax Commission this morning because I wasn't really certain. We've never had them apply. The whole time I've worked for the county, I've never received an application from the Utah Housing Corp. And my understanding was that they were not a state entity. And so it is all raw land. And so being raw land, it would not qualify. As soon as they were issued a building permit and started building, then they could get that exempt status if they applied for it. But where it was raw land, I didn't think that it would qualify. Josh agreed with me. And then he said he'd call me back if there was any changes. He called back and he says, no, we still agree with you. I just wanted to, you know, whatever. And then he called back again. He says, no, we were wrong. He says, we did some research and found that there is a state code, 63H-8-404, that states that the Utah Housing Corporation is under the state umbrella and that they are not taxable. So with that information at hand, we will, even though it's raw land, we will need to approve that as tax exempt property.
What's their charitable, what do they do?
They provide low-income housing. So we have the Cedar Housing Authority, and they, oh gosh, I thought they had.
They're being exempted because they are a political subdivision similar to a subdivision of the state. So it's not the charity, it's the ownership as part of the state. Isn't that what Josh said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
But it's
so
low-income housing, but it's a political subdivision of the state.
Yeah.
So it's by ownership.
They are adding that to their general information for those of us that aren't aware of that. So, okay, so that is new vehicles, buildings, or changes. The properties not eligible. Christ's Church. Last year, well, and previous, lots of years prior to that, they have received the exempt status. It is for a building. I have never seen it, but apparently it is a pyramid out in the Burl area, and quite a bit of acreage out there. And they have been receiving the exemption. And after they had applied last year, it was about 2 months later, I think it was, Ann Gurr, who has since retired from the assessor's office, contacted me, and she says they're not using that building anymore. She said it's vacant. She says it's falling apart. She says the church has been disbanded, and so they should not have received the exempt status, even though they had applied for it. They weren't using it as a church. Besides that, like I said, there is a lot of vacant land that at some point I don't know if they actually ever did or not, but their thought behind it was that they were going to grow crops for their church members, or maybe to sell and make income off of. I'm not positive on that, but at any rate, so I talked with Michael Edwards last year, and he said, well, it's too late for this year, being 2018. So I had big notes all over that they would not qualify this year. Well, I still received an application from them. They indicated that there's no changes, which they've been doing for years, and that they still function as a church and everything. So I have had Trevor, well, I contacted the person that sent me the application and said that we were wanting to go out and just look at the site, and she said, sure, fine, not a problem. She said, I'll call so-and-so, and I says, well, have them call Trevor in the assessor's office. I gave her the number. Trevor still has not heard from them, and it's been not quite 2 weeks since I spoke with her, and I talked to him this morning. He still hasn't heard from them and can't get in to the property because it's all fenced off and gates locked. So based on that information, I suggest that we do not approve their exempt status this year. It will give them the opportunity to provide documentation or whatever and approve to the state, appeal to the state if they, want to pursue it further. So, but that would be my recommendation. The last section there, vehicles sold, those are just 4 different entities. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Diamond Z, English Shire Foundation, Iron County Care and Share, and the Turn group that have had vehicles that they have sold for one reason or another from their use. So that's the changes in a nutshell. The additional 5 pages behind that are all of the properties that have requested exempt status. And the only, like I said, the only changes are the ones that are here on this front sheet.
So
if you want to review any of those that are, on the sheets.
Just the one you mentioned, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Tract A Temple Cove subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
So does that remain tax exempt until they sell those lots that they've developed, or how does that work? What's that?
Are they vacant?
Yes, it's a brand new subdivision.
They shouldn't be exempt if they are vacant.
That was my question.
And
I
this
believe
is probably
that's
my misunderstanding. I thought that they were developing the properties.
well, the roads and utilities. If it's the one just north of the temple, that's a brand new subdivision that's got roads and improvements in.
Subdivision's not actually in the church's name; it's in a different entity. So that's.
Oh, is it?
Oh.
If one of the lots that's in the church's name, then they're probably doing something.
All 3 of these came up under the corporation of the president.
That subdivision's in.
Okay. So what we could do on that, we could hold off on making a decision on those, and I can get clarification from Dale Jones with the LDS Church headquarters, and then check with Cindy's office, and then on the next commission meeting we could make a final decision.
We can go look at them, because even if they're planning to do it, my understanding is it wouldn't be exempt until then the next year, because as of January 1st, if they were vacant.
Well, if they receive a building permit, then at that point it can be, but they would have to apply for it. It's not just an automatic thing. Which reminds me, on Henry's Place, they purchased this property the end of January. So they applied within the 30-day window in which they could request exempt status. It just happened to coincide with applying for the exempt status for this year. So they would only receive the exempt status from February 1st through the end of this year on Henry's Place. Sorry, I had a big note on the side and I still forgot it.
You've got that on here. So,
yeah, okay. Oh, yes.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Excuse me. I would move for the approval how do I?
No, there's no easy way of doing
I
it.
was going to say, is there an easy way around this?
Other than maybe just
I'm glad you
entity
beat me
by
to the punch,
entity
Mike.
saying that.
You could say approve all except. You could just do the exceptions.
And talk
That
about
might be
the
easiest.
exceptions.
Okay.
I move for approval of the applications from religious, educational, and charitable organizations as discussed, with the exception of Henry's Place, with a recommended 12 acres of exemption instead of the 14.15 that were requested.
And then include the 11 months in that.
Oh, excuse me. With and that being from February 1st through the end of the year, because of the property was purchased in January, so that's for 11 months only. The properties listed for Christ Church Inc., which are described as a pyramid church or temple, we would deny those requests until evidence of their ongoing usage could be provided for us. Then
There's the International Church of the Foursquare that's requesting the additional 4 acres. So
Red
we need to
one.
decide what to do on that one.
see, the problem is you put it in red, and I'm the colorblind
I know.
guy, so I skip.
I'm sorry.
Red does not stand out to me. It does the exact opposite.
I'll try and remember that.
The state of Utah, in their brilliance, has made people's date of birth on their driver's license red, so I can't read them. That's my rant for the day. Yeah, look, okay, back up to the International Church of the Foursquare. They're requesting exempt status on 5 acres vacant land. We are willing to approve 1 acre for the use there. Then the other question was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There needs to be some clarification as far as
Temple Cove subdivision.
Temple Cove subdivision. Did I
And
cap?
the Eastview Estates also, or Westview Estates also.
I think those, is that new church out in Westview, those lots?
It's very possible.
So we're probably, I would imagine we're
Probably
good
okay on that one.
I
or
would
those two?
imagine. I think that's
Okay,
probably.
I will double check, and if they're not, I will.
I can testify that it's in use.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Building I go to.
oh, okay. All right. Well, that made it easy.
So the only one in question there is the Temple Cove.
Okay.
Did I catch all of them?
I think so.
Okay, that's my motion.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve all these parcels except the ones that have been iterated that we don't approve, or there's an adjustment on them. I won't go through them again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Christine.
Okay.
And I'm sure you've got a signature page for all of us. Thank you very much, Christine. We'll adjourn as BOA and reconvene as Iron County Commission, and convene as Iron County Community. I guess we'll have to adjourn again from Iron County Commission. Convene as Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency. Item number 6, review and possibly approve tax increment payments for Enterprise Solar, Granite Mountain East Solar, Granite Mountain West Solar, and Iron Springs Solar projects. Danny is here, our Economic Development Director, to help us with this. Thank you, Danny.
Commissioners, thank you for your time on this. That time of year, we're coming up on April 1st, which is the deadline on our agreements that we have for these property tax incentives for these solar projects. These 4 projects that you named are owned by Dominion Energy. Dominion has been very good at working with us in going back to their participation agreement, and We've gone through point by point all the items that they're required to do to be able to request their reimbursement on their property taxes. I've reviewed each of those, and they have met all of the requirements according to those. We simplified those requirements a little bit just for your sake, and those were included in your packet is these single sheet worksheets. That's the signature page that they have. But basically, a couple of those are out of their hands. It's just, is the agency entitled to receive the tax increment payments, which the agency is, and has the agency actually received the payment, which it did, and then the others lie upon them to show that they are continuing their operation, that they have paid their taxes, and that they have made their request to the agency before April 1st. So really, that's where we're at. After reviewing these, talked them over with Reed as well. They're all in compliance with their conditional use permit, and even though that's not part of the agreement, they're all operating as they should be properly.
Excellent. Any questions?
I started reading this, but I fell asleep. Sorry.
I got a few more of them.
It's pretty exciting.
Well, and you're good because we've got these good people checking them, and
glad you know
Danny and Reed are making sure and our staff has done a really good job. We had a lot of these come on us all at once. They've done a really good job of making requirements and putting that in writing, making sure that they're scrutinized, and so we appreciate that very much.
Thank you, and it is great. It's not just myself, but it's the entire staff that deals with these. I appreciate all the help and the work that goes into these, and John puts a lot of time in on these as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We enjoy working with Danny. He's great.
Thank you.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
So I'll move to approve the tax increment payments for the Enterprise Solar, Granite Mountain East Solar, Granite Mountain West Solar, and Iron Springs Solar projects as explained by Danny Stewart. Yes.
Add to your motion the actual dollar amounts. Sometimes these are always scrutinized, and I'd like if it's in there, then it's more official that that's the dollar amount.
And I don't have those on that document. If you'd like,
is it the very end of this document?
They're not there.
See that.
Are they? I don't think
no, they weren't filled
I can tell you
out.
what they are.
Okay.
Enterprise is $839,785.53. Granite Mountain East is $878,421.54. Granite Mountain West is $566,604.38. Iron Springs is $855,916.34. Grand total in this meeting of $3,140,727.79.
$3,140,007.
$727.79. They always kind of come up with their own numbers and think that's what we need to. So I'm always telling them this is the calculations, and I'd send them all the calculations. But if you guys put this in your motion, it makes it a lot more official. It's not
okay.
That's true. I appreciate that. And when I bring these forward in the future, I'll include that with this so that can be part of the motion. But occasionally they figure their percentage and they're not excluding some of those things that, or they're including some of the things that shouldn't be in that. But we use our figures and not theirs.
So I'll include in that motion for Enterprise Solar, $839,785.53. Granite Mountain East, $878,421.54. Granite Mountain West, $566,604.38. Iron Springs Solar, $855,916.34 for a total of $3,140,727.79.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the tax increment payments for Enterprise Solar, Granite Mountain East, Granite Mountain West, and Iron Springs Solar projects as iterated. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. John, do you have those signature pages?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll sign those right now. Where are we today? 7th day of March. I've just got to sign these and we'll be with you. Let's see. Okay, there you go. Thank you. All right, Adrian, personnel. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just have a couple personnel related requests. Both have to do.
Commissioner, if you would, you need to reconvene as the County Commission.
Thank you very much for. Okay, well, we will adjourn as the Iron County Community Development Renewal Agency and reconvene as Iron County Commission, then personnel.
There we go.
Thanks, John, for getting.
So, as I was saying, a couple personnel related requests. Both have to do with the clerk's office, both relating to the pending retirement of Cindy Robinson, which is upcoming. Both of these would go into effect the following pay period. One, with that retirement, there's a vacancy created within the clerk's office. We're looking to get your approval for new hire Marilee Wilson as deputy clerk with the effective date of March 24th, 2019. So, as I had stated, it's a backfill. And then also approval for the promotion of Chanel Bess from currently serving as a deputy clerk to fill the chief deputy position being vacated by Cindy. And again, with the effective date of March 24th, 2019. And that's all I have for you today.
Okay. I would move approval of new hire Marilee Wilson as deputy clerk effective 3/24/2019. Note that that's a backfill of a vacant position. Also move to approve the promotion of Chanel Bess from deputy clerk to chief deputy effective 3/24/2019. And note that that is also a backfill position.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the two offices or positions in the clerk's office iterated. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to skip number. Yeah. Hold on, this one.
I suggest that.
So finalized conversation with Marilee. She said she was starting on the 18th. Is that something that's been brought down?
I did get a chance to talk to her on Friday, and she was fine with the 24th. She made it in. She made it in.
Going to skip item 8. We'll go on to non-delegated items at this time, and then we actually have a coordination meeting with the Forest Service at 1:30. So we will go to lunch, come back for that, which is it's not an Iron County Commission meeting, but it's a public meeting, and then we'll reconvene after that meeting, which will probably be 2:30, 3 o'clock. Will that work?
Yeah, I've got to get on the road, but I'll send a deputy.
You'll send a deputy, okay, perfect. And we'll have the strategy session under item 8 when we reconvene. It's late, much later this afternoon. So we thought everything would go really quickly this morning, but anyway, if you think it never happens. Okay, any prairie dog matters?
Happily no.
Happily no. Any county board? You want to?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about county boards. In regards to the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District Board, we have 2 of our board members who are up for renewal. There's been some discussion in regards to our chairman, Brent Hunter. He's been on there a long time, And then also Spencer Jones is just finishing his first term, I believe. And there's been some discussion about Brent back and forth. It's of my opinion that we reappoint Brent for one more term, as well as Spencer. There's that is a board that I believe is really critical that we have continuity. We've got a lot of new board members. When I served as a board member, it took almost 2 years to get up to speed, just to understand all the different projects, and you almost have to go out and see it and feel it and touch it to understand what's going on. And so I would like to, I mean, do you want me to make a motion, Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
or do we,
what do we do? Maybe review in 2 years with Brent?
Right, that's right. And with Brent, at least, and that's what we discussed, is at least reappoint Brent with the, to relook at that in 2 years, just so the new members of the board can kind of get up to speed, and then we'll go to that point and see where we're at. So.
Yeah, and then please make that as a motion.
Well, and so I guess, so that would be my motion, is to reappoint Brent Hunter for another term, but look at that in 2 years to reevaluate that, and then appoint Spencer Jones for another 4-year term on the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District Board.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded that we reappoint Brent Hunter to the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District and reevaluate that 2 years because of the length of time he's been on there, but to keep him there for continuity for now. And also Spencer Jones to be reappointed to the board of the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, we will adjourn this time for lunch, and then like I say, we have a coordination meeting at 1:30 with Forest Service right here. And we will reconvene later for item 8. So chair declares the meeting adjourned for lunch.